Hello, and before you get going on the next episode of Zapped to the Past, we would just like to give a massive shout out to the following people: Andy Marsh, Cole Hutchinson, David Hearn, Sven Osa, 2000 DC, Gary Heather, Roger McNally, Joshua Dove, Mark Fletcher, Etienne Vettingfeld, Niall Bullitt, Alexander Gosling, Tim TJ Walker, Phil Sowerby, Joshua K, Dominic Kendrick, Rune P, Steve Perrant, Nick James, Daniel Spreadbury, Peter Price, Richard Davey, Dennis Breakhus, ALH2 Retro, Liam Carew, Dylan Darch, Trevor Planner, Alistair McMillan, Mark Schutz, Lee Sparkles, Dan Wales, Gary Brown Sauce Wilson, Oscar Jacobson, and Brian Howarth. These amazing people have backed our Patreon at the C64 tier, and the support they offer is just awesome. If you want to join them and get a mention in next month's shout out, access to our Discord server, early access to ad-free episodes along with any special releases we put out, along with anything else we can think of, and sign up by the 18th of the month at patreon.com/zapped to the past for little more than the price of a pint of beer. It helps us keep playing the games so you don't have to. And welcome to episode 101 of Zapped to the Past. I am Adrian Mills, and I'm joined as always by Mr. Graham Raddings. If you haven't listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. Last week, we looked at our second batch of games from issue 41 of Zap 64, which we are in no way affiliated with, and were bummed out by Beach Buggy Simulator, stimulated by Salamander, and bothered by Blood Brothers. This week, we conclude our look at the games in September 1988, along with what was lighting up our TV and cinema screens that month. So Graham, should we have gone higher or lower this week in order to get a real Brucey bonus?
In this elaborate plate of anti-pasty, ultra-thin cut meats and posh cheeses of an episode, we frog hop across some asteroids before blasting and yelling our way around some monster-filled mines looking for spare parts in the loud and talky Slimey's mine. Head to the cornerless football pitches of horror for a confusing kickabout in the somewhat clumsy European five-a-side. Climb up the magical castle of a certain famous talking mouse looking for one pieces and possibly a slice of cake by the look of it in the hefty licensed Mickey Mouse. And machine gun our way up and down and across some of the scrolling landscapes on the lookout for prisoners in Fernandez Must Die. Have you ever wrapped your meat around a breadstick? That's not a euphemism either, Adrian. We also carefully deploy our naval fleet before playing hide-and-seek with our ship's guns in the classic and well-realised battleships, grab our trusty steed and ride like the wind in the rooting, tooting, shooting, diabolical duplicate nonsense of Kane II, check to see if we are not entertained in the gladiator-smashing world of Spartacus Swordslayer, slip into our formal attire and grab our poshest long sticks for a game of poke the ball with the crappy Professional Snooker Simulator before finally gulping down some tasteless irony and trudging across a military assault course as we train for war in the electro anti-war song inspired game 19 Part 1 Boot Camp. So much shouting, burping, grunting and brown noise in this episode, and there are some noisy old games in there too. Maybe you get a Brucey boner.
Ew, don't want to think about that. He's dead. He would be bone now, I suppose. He's just all bone, and he probably is not much flesh left on those bones. So one thing before we get going, because we've got a few games to do and stuff to do. Turns out Ninja Scooter Simulator was not quite as we were led to believe. We were lied to by our album covers.
Yeah, because it was a Ninja was a brand of scooter, right?
That's according to one of our patrons. Yeah. Was it?
You learn something new every day.
Yes, it turns out that the Ninja Scooter Simulator game was probably another casualty of telling the artist the name of the game and no detail whatsoever.
It can happen.
We saw in, what was that for? It was that Poltergeist the other week, wasn't it?
Yes, that was the Flying Ghostbuster. It's
a Flying Ghostbuster, yeah. It was a Photon Storm who put us right on that ninja scooters were a thing in the 80s. I mean, I'm no scooter aficionado, so, no. I'm not fussed about getting it wrong because I didn't find anything that said that when we were looking at the game or anything.
No, I didn't. Never even occurred to me that it would be a brand of scooter.
No, I genuinely thought it was about ninjas on scooters.
Yeah, well, it sort of does imply that when you call it that.
Ninja Scooter Simulator, and you have that cover that had that cover of, which had the ninja on a scooter with the ghost ninja in the back.
Yeah.
We can be forgiven for getting that wrong, I think. But, I just thought I'd write that info because it's quite interesting. But, yeah.
Yes.
Communicate with your artist. Communicate with them.
Yes, exactly. Give them a good indication of what the game's actually about.
Yeah, indeed.
But we should have applied Occam's razor, shouldn't we, really? No, we heard hooves there and we instantly thought zebras as opposed to bloody horses.
Yeah, but you would always think that because you don't like horses.
True. You
would wish for zebras. Well, actually,
yes.
Do you like zebras?
I don't mind zebras. Nothing against a zebra.
Isn't it just a striped horse?
No. A lot of people make that mistake, actually. It's why you don't see horses and zebras in the same fields.
What colour are zebra stripes, do you know?
I thought they were black and white.
Yeah, but what's the base colour and what's the stripe?
I don't know whether it's white on black or black on white. I don't know that.
No, I don't either. I wondered if there was one. Just
but that's what Michael Jackson's song was about.
What, zebras?
Yeah.
Could be. Or his other one. I don't know which one that would be. But
Song of the Zebra.
Zebra song. It's track 7 on Earth album.
Good old Zebra song. Never got the press it deserved, that one.
It didn't, no. That weird video he made for it that couldn't be released.
Dress all the kinds of zebra in the world. Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. Now go away. So we've got a few games to cover. We've got 8 games. We've got cinema, TV. We've also got a couple of crapverts. Managed to find a couple of crapverts.
They don't come along very often these days.
They don't come along, but they are a particular quality this week. So I'm glad that I'm hoping that you'll enjoy those. We've got them to come at the end, but we've got quite a lot to cover. So should we just get into our games? Let's get into it after the the madness of last week. Let's have a bit more normalcy, and we'll just get into some games. So let's do that right now. And Graham, you have the pleasure of the first one. Please enter Slimey's Mine.
Slimey's Mine was made by Simon Pick. Simon Pick is the guy that did Nemesis, Gradius, Mad Nurse. Remember that Simon Pick? The old one, the guy that did it's obvious that he did Microrhythm when you look at this game, isn't it? Later he went on to do Narc.
Weird.
Yeah, I know. God help us all. Anyway, so the musician, of course, for this was Simon Pick. I don't know if you call it music, sequenced sounds, but it is what it is.
It's noise of a sort.
What a loud game this is, Slimey's Mine. It got 94% silver medal, $2.99, so it was a budget release. It's a loud game. Loads of sampled sounds in this, so loud, so very loud. And like I said, clearly from the guy behind Microrhythm, you can tell it is. You can even rearrange the opening barrage of sounds, can't you, with like a mini sequencer on the opening title screen of this. You can press the space bar to silence them and then press the ZX and a few keys on the keyboard and you'll get the ooh, ah, and all the weird sounds. You can do that for a while. Those sounds, they're going to bore their way into your brain directly in. Right in deep. Anyway, so Slimey's Mine then. The game, nice simple premise for this, actually. Slimey has been trapped on an asteroid belt miles from home. His only chance to return is by exploring old mine workings which exist in the area in order to salvage scrap parts from abandoned spaceships. Unfortunately, the mines have become overrun by alien life forms whose strange behaviour will hinder Slimey's efforts in reaching his goal. There's the premise right there. Nice and easy, that, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So you play the game across sort of 2 different, well, there's technically 3, I suppose, but two areas, the asteroid level and the inside the mines on the level. So I'll sort of describe the way the game sort of works and everything else, and we'll cover the sort of asteroid level and what that looks like and the bonus level and everything else and all the bits and bobs. So you start with a very lively title screen, like I said on this. The aforementioned sequence of noises do play away there and again, but you also get options here to change the game difficulty to an asteroid field values between 0 and 99 by pressing the function keys F1 across to F3, F5, and F7. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure really. I guess that's difficulty, I think. I didn't tinker with it too much, actually.
No.
I just wanted to get off that screen as quickly as I possibly could. So yeah, like I say, you can play the sound. The game begins with one of your Slimies, of which you have 3, launching out of his test tube and into the game world. You are first presented with the asteroid level, which you can hop Slimey between asteroids and look around. Some of the asteroids do have mine entrances to mines. Others have arrows on and other things. So you kind of plan a route across these in order to sort of get enough. The idea of it is that you go into the mines, shoot enough of the baddies. I'll cover all that sort of as we go through. So once you sort of go across the asteroids and find a mine, so you click on the button and you can enter the mine, and then you're inside. Each mine is comprised of a number of levels or connected screens, depends how you look at it, where you must blast the aliens and collect diamonds. When killed, the aliens will release a blue diamond, and collecting 10 of those will reveal a red diamond. Collect that, and you've completed that particular screen, and then you can move on to the next one via one of the interconnected doors. Other objects are also found in the mines, including blue bubbles, yellow balls, which are banana bombs, a map, there's obviously doors, and water. All of the things in there are designed to kind of help you in some way. There are also some extra keys to be used in the game as well. F1 transfers Slimey to a different part of the current screen, like a transporter thing. You need that in some of the levels when you go in, and there's seemingly no way around to get to sort of the other bits. It's a sneaky thing. F3 is your banana bomb. F7, you can end the level, but you use up a red diamond in doing that. And P is pause. All of the enemies in the game drain your precious fluid. In this case, it's water, and you can be fully depleted of water 3 times before you'll lose one of your 3 lives. If you lose all 3 lives, it's game over, man, and it will tell you that very loudly. So you blast everything and anything to collect the diamonds. So mad scrambly shoot them up when you get into those parts. Eventually, you'll find the parts for the ship, return to the asteroid level, and then you'll find an area where you can hop onto the next asteroid belt to find more spaceship parts, and so it goes on. The asteroid level has a series of asteroids to jump across and between, and a guide scanner of sorts on the right of the screen to sort of guide you across. It's a bit like... we played another game that had a similar sort of hop along the blocks view. I can't remember what the game was, but we played something similar anyway. You do need to be careful in that part because some of the asteroids have horrible things like skull and crossbows on, which will kill you instantly if you touch those. And also there's some bouncy arrows on it. So when you go on an arrow, it'll fling you off in the direction. And, well, that can lead to death as well because you might end up being flung into space where there's no asteroids. Not nice.
No.
The mine screens are kind of the mines are kind of single screen caves, the best way to describe it, I suppose, which occupy most of the game window. Your score, number of blue diamonds and red diamonds collected, and other useful indicators run across the very bottom of the screen, and a small water jug icon lets you know how much liquid you have remaining. As you go between the 3 stages of water depletion, you will change colour. So it's pretty clear. Oh, Slimey changes colour, not you personally. But it's pretty clear what was happening to you at any time. You control Slimey with the joystick, fire shoots all over the place, and you control him across all the compass points and can shoot that way too. It gets pretty manic in there when you're firing bullets because they sort of hit the side and scramble around the edges, don't they? Quite cool. I quite like the way it played in that way. And it's quite tough, but with enough affordance to sort of keep you in there, I think. So that's how the game plays out. It's quite nice the way it does, actually. It's a pretty straightforward in and on with it game, which I quite like. I suppose you could imply that there's little techniques when you're inside the mines because you got to keep on the move. I think is the secret to the success in this game. You can't, you got to move around. It reminded me of that game you made in some ways, in the way you sort of to move around the screen and keep shooting at different angles. Then it also was more twin sticky shooter without the twin stick, wasn't it?
But, the dungeon one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that when I started playing it, I was like, this is... well, there you go.
Yeah, it just reminded me a little bit of that. But at the same time, like I said, it's pretty manic in there. And I quite like the pace of that. I thought the graphics were pretty good in this, especially for a budget game. Everything kind of fits in with that. And it's an attempt at humour. So everything does kind of fit in with the humour of the game. The main sprite is kind of cute in a froggy kind of way, I suppose. There's a whole load of weird aliens ranging from balls to Pac-Man ghosts to weird heads that float towards you. There's a real weird blend of graphics. It all fits nicely with the aesthetic, though. The background level graphics, while on the simpler side, service the purpose and just provide enough structure to give the screens a sort of map and structure. They're not especially difficult to navigate. Movement is good, and there's a good barrage of enemies here, so it's quite frantic. There's lots of happening at the same time. Colours are pretty good, too. Mines have a nice swampy brown and green edge. The asteroid levels look suitably rock and space-like, with nice shading and details. The sounds are, I think, are borderline insane, really, on this. But I suppose they're in keeping with the humour of the game. Nothing is too serious here. So there's a whole load of what, game over, hey, Bertie, and all this sort of weird stuff going on. But all right, go along with it. There's a bonus level as well where you need to collect mini frogs, which are known as Berties in this game for some reason, as they pop up. And again, all the graphics in that section are actually pretty good. So for budget money, I thought this was really good fun. I mean, the sounds can get annoying, all right, but remember, let's just, contextualize this. This is £3 worth of game here. It's challenging and it's a daft shooter that has a nice, frantic, fun logic and elements to it. And also a little bit of extra puzzle and thought around it. You can't, because there is, you are in a little maze and you've got to navigate your way around and, and it's quite nice in that way. There's a lot going on almost all of the time in this game. So you're never static and you're not, you don't get much time to think. It's quite frantic and I quite like that about it. And it offers you a ton of things to do and enough affordance that will make you want to play it a bit more. So you're not thrown at the deep end. It's not so hard because you've got that liquid and you don't die instantly. You just, you get a bit of time to and you can build that back up with the right collection of items as well. You've got a little bit of time to get into it. You've got, you can sort of scoot around and try and get through as much as you can. I was playing this for quite a while. I think for £3, this is a great little game. It's a really good little blast 'em up for the money. I think the only warning I would have is the sound effects, because they're funny and quirky for a while, for sure, but they will gradually grate, and eventually you'll find your ears tire of them. that is a small niggle, I think, for what is, I felt, quite an accomplished budget game. And we hadn't had one of those for a while. Just a good mini package of a game. Not super crazy, not super, taxing. Just get in there, shoot things, collect things, and just do it quick and get on with it. I quite liked it, and I had a good fun playing it. Wasn't what I remembered that well. I remembered the sounds for some reason. When they started kicking off, I'm like, oh, it's them, which means they must have embedded themselves in my brain real deep for the first time.
That's what they do.
So I liked it. I thought it was good. What about you?
Yeah, what a really fun game this is from start to finish. It's just fun. It's just really good. I thought this would be worth the money at full price with the volume of stuff going on, the level of complexity, the amount of challenge that's there, the various things you've got to be on top of to proceed through the various mines. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. The graphics are fast. There's just some slowdown at the time, but it's not egregious slowdown. It's just on occasion, but it's not that bad. They're colourful, they're cute. The interstitial scenes are good. I like the way your Slimeys get launched out of test tubes. I thought that was quite funny. I also like the way that you fill the hole with frogs. You boot them in.
Yeah.
And then you go up to it and you're like, and you have to go back to get more. It's like cute and like those kind of little interstitial story beats just give this game a sort of, there's thought here and there's all the little bits and the fact that, all fits in 64K, all good. I like the way that you navigated the mines. Like you said, there's puzzle ones, but so there's different ways. Sometimes you have to hold down the F1 key and sort of aim, but like quite often because you got to do it quite quick, I would lose a life because I'd just teleport myself into solid matter. Like, but that's my fault, But then I learned to line myself up where I was going and then just pull down and launch through, and I was fast and I was in there, so that's good. But I also like the way that sometimes you get those apples and I thought I was being teleported, but they just clear the room, don't they? Just make it into a blank square.
Yep.
And that's good as well. So then that allows you just freedom just to go, if you're ever in a tough room, you get an apple. It's like, that's good. So I liked a lot of this. So there's different strategies to be taken. I very much enjoyed this game. And yeah, like you said, it did remind me of that game I made. I mean, I'd never played this before, so I was like playing it going, this feels oddly familiar. Oh, this is like that. But yeah, obviously. But I did think, and the thing with this game is, although it had a bit of what was the one ages ago, the one that you liked, Wizard's Lair. There's a bit of a Wizard's Lair vibe to it as well.
Vibe to it, yeah.
Because it's that thing. And what we said then about Wizard's Lair, or what I said then back then, or I remember saying that, was like I would have liked more screen space to play around in, and this gives you that screen space. It uses the screen better, so you've got more, and it's just as fast, but there's more stuff to do, and you've got more space to run around in. But certainly I could certainly see this game, if you took this game and put some more modern spin on the visuals, took twin stick controls in, more depth to what you can shoot, and some power ups and things like that. This is a modern twin stick shooter indie game.
Yeah, totally.
You've got that sort of, the above level, the ground level, the asteroids where you're flipping around, then you dive into the mines to find stuff and come back out, progressing, you level it up, you're finding treasure, you're buying new power. You could see this and go, oh yeah, this is the design on this is very, very good. And it's a very clever little game, this, and thoroughly deserving of its 94%, if not more, in my opinion, at that price, £3. And it also reminded me a bit of, I don't know if you ever played it, but The Binding of Isaac, which is kind of one of the seminal sort of single screen twin stick shooters. It was kind of, it's in that. That's what I mean. This is an early version of them.
Otherwise known as YouTuber Gold, isn't it, that game?
Yeah, I mean, if you had YouTube back then, this one would have been one of them, because all those noises kicking off, you could see the YouTube going, hey, Bertie, you know what he was saying. Yeah.
That was a good impression. I just thought you got a tick then. I thought you'd gone mad.
Yeah, so like I said, it reminds me of The Binding of Isaac. That's really no bad thing, because it's a really cracking game. So this is just a really fun opener to the week. And I was, like I said, never played it, never even heard of it. It's not one that's, by this point, we're getting into games where, unless they're massive, I'm not going to have heard of them. So most of the games we come across at this point, I'm not going to have heard of. But this is a really nice surprise, and I was thoroughly engrossed. Like you, I was playing this for quite a while. And it's nice as well, because you don't just have 3 lives, do you? You have 3 lives per life.
Yes, but I say you got more affordance, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got 9 lives. So and it's just nice. It's just a good fun blast of a game.
Yes, it is.
Certainly one of the best budget ones. I would put this up in top tier budget land.
Yeah, definitely.
There we go. Slime is mine. I was wondering about it. 94%. Is it really that good? But yes, turns out it certainly is.
It's worth its slimy medal.
Yes, the slimy medal. Yeah, it's SM. Slime is mine. SM. Yeah, it fits, doesn't it? Yeah, slimy mine. There we go. That's our first one. That's a good way to start. Let's hope it long continues.
Every time we say it. Every time.
Every time we say it, and I know I'm not. It's never gone.
The monkey's paws just got.
Well, no, it's my fault, because I always put the highest scoring one at the front, and then one of the lowest scoring ones straight after it. Peaks and troughs. Compare and contrast.
Small apples, big apples, whatever you want to.
Yeah, whatever. Let's go to our next one. And our next one is European five-a-side. Why it's European, we don't know.
Why is it? It's got literally nothing to do with it.
But yeah, let's not leave that, let's just leave that to one side for the moment. For those of us who would never be good enough for professional football, and the thought of running around on a Sunday morning in the local leagues was too much effort, there was always five-a-side football to keep us entertained and provide us with our footballing needs. I played loads of five-a-side in my time, at different sorts of times in my life.
It's a fun little game.
Yeah, it really is. It's a good laugh. And so, just as it is in real life, here we have a budget game to provide us with just that. Small pitch, bouncy boards at the sides, we don't have to worry about corners and throw-ins, and half-height goals to defend. This budget title hails from the Silverbird range, and the cover, which I liked, featured a strong-chested man chesting the biggest ball known to footballers everywhere. That ball was massive in comparison to him. He was really strong-chested as well. He was like, oh, look at my chest.
Well.
But he was really thin. He was thin but strong-chested. It's an odd combo. The back of the box has Spectrum screenshots, which is rubbish. I hate when they do that, but it does. And it has this text. There's no writing, but it's just along the bottom corner, along in a diagonal, it says this: football fans freak out and kick off with a winner. I don't know what it means. But that's
no
what it says. Football fans freak out if they buy this crap. That's what it should have said. And kick off with a winner. I was thinking, is a Bob winner? Are they, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's anything to do with the game or what. Anyway, Win Bobner. And suffice to say, we've got a chesty start here. This game was designed originally on the Spectrum by Tim Close, and this conversion was handled by Dave Kirby.
Dave not so close.
Dave far away. And this conversion was handled by Davy Kirby, and it's got music by Steve Barrett. There's a rather lackluster title screen that greets you upon loading this, encompassing all the shades of grey the C64 is capable of. Really, really invites you in. Like grey.
Nothing shouts excitement than grey.
Like I'm in a car park. And it really gets the pulse quickening for some five-a-side antics in a small sports arena, just on the outskirts of Luton. That's what I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I've played a few of. You can play this one or two players, and you can also change. You've got some options to play around with. When you press that, though, it leads to a confusing view of the pitch. Just a view of the pitch just appears, like for no reason, and there's no indication of what does what here. But I'll tell you now, because I played around with this, you can press the space bar to cycle through a 3, 5, or 10-minute game. And for the love of God, if you've got to play this, choose 3. 10 will seem like an eternity. It's 10 minutes a half. It will seem like an absolute eternity. I kid you not. Playing a 10-minute game, 10-minute half, so it's a 20-minute game of this. It will lighten your hair. It will do all bad things to you. Just don't play a 10-minute game of this. And you can change the colour of the pitch with F7. You can go from green to a lighter green to grey to yellow to lighter grey to brown and to white. Don't play on white because the ball's white.
Honestly, they didn't think that through, did they?
No. If it's supposed to be snow, you play with an orange ball. This is the 80s. They had orange balls back then.
Is five-a-side played indoors or outdoors? I suppose it's both, isn't it?
It can be outdoors. We used to play outdoors. Once you're satisfied with the colour of the pitch, you press enter to go back to the main screen. There are no clues to doing this. This was me jabbing at the keyboard. I couldn't find any proper instructions for this, but, found what it is. And you can press 4 to play a game. So the view here is top-down and vertical scrolling. And correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe this is the first time we've seen this view.
It is the first time, yeah.
So, this is going to lead to micro-pro soccer, kick-off, and sensible soccer.
Yep, just the first.
Maybe there's another on another machine, I don't know, but everything else has usually been from the side, hasn't it?
I was going to say, this. I think when I looked about, I couldn't find any others.
No, not that it was earlier than this. So there we go, we've got our sort of stock in trade, sort of top-down view. The bottom quarter of the screen has the grey UI, massive grey UI. It's like takes up a quarter. It's just huge. It's only got 3 things on it. It's got your score, the computer in the bottom left, the computer score in the bottom right, and the timer ticking down for eternity that it feels like when you play this damn thing. I'm sure it goes slower than real time.
Pretty sure it does.
Because I put it into warp mode, and that seemed to make it go normal time. Because I wanted it to end. I was like, oh, God's sake,
slow-mo.
End. Yeah, so that's it. Those 3 things take up the bottom quarter of the screen, really massive. The top 3 quarters of the screen has the game and this sort of top-down vertical scrolling thing. And here, a series of blocky, badly animated sprites play out an unrecognizable sport. It's supposed to be some kind of football. So the 2 teams are red versus blue. The player you control is highlighted in either dark or light grey. I love their grey in this game. Love it. So much grey. You run about, you try to get the ball. If you do a tap of the fire button, you will supposedly pass it, except you don't. And holding down the fire button will do a lofted pass. That's it. Both are problematic, as the speed of the pass in either way is the same speed as which you run. So passes it to yourself.
Weird.
You just keep running boot up in the air. You're like, running with the ball in the air, and then you're back to you.
Stupid.
You don't pass it. You have to stop running for it to actually move faster than you. And when they just tap it, it just goes.
That noise. That stupid,
but then
stupid
noise.
Then
that noise when it goes up in the air.
I actually want real football to make that noise.
It would make watching the commentator has to do it. He's a lofted ball.
That'd be hilarious.
Harry Kane's controlled it. He's gone for a chip.
I want to see that now.
So pass it yourself. There's no building of attacks here or passing it to people when running straight up or down. Because, like I said, you just run as fast as the ball moves at all times. However, this is not the same as passing for diagonals or across the pitch. So when you pass it in diagonals, the ball does move faster and does move away from you, which means you run faster vertically than you do horizontally or diagonally.
You mean you don't?
Which is stupid. It's just you're not running uphill
think of it.
or
That's
downhill.
why Usain Bolt always runs at an angle.
When he's really fast around the corner when he's like leaning. It's like it's just stupid. There's no sense to this. It's also stupidly easy to score. You just run up to the corner of the box and fire at a diagonal to the far corner, and the opposing goalie does nothing. You can't shoot from straight on. There was one point where I'd stopped just on the edge of the box and shot straight. The goalie will always get it and just kick it straight back out, but it was bouncing straight back to me, so I just booted it again. And so the goalie would then back it. I did this for about 2 minutes. It was just like, I was like, Jesus Christ. I can hear that noise. It's like this is the first 2 games are weird noise couplet.
They absolutely are.
These are noises I'm going to hear in my sleep. Bertie.
Bertie.
Shut up.
Bertie, game over.
All right then. Hello.
Okay, I made those 2 up.
They were very good, though. I thought they were samples from the game then. That was very good. Yeah. So if you want to score, just run to the edge. I was 10-0 up at half time, and this in the 3-minute game, my second go. It's rubbish. This is rubbish on all fronts. It's ugly, sounds awful, it won't go a long way. Why the up and down noise when you do a long pass and plays terribly? There's no sense of a game of football here, five-a-side or not. And whilst it may say football on the box, this is not football in the game. This is a rubbish and overall bad piece of software that would not entertain anyone for more than 5 minutes. I guess in 2 players, you might get some fun, but I don't think you would really. You'd be turning this off quite sharpish and playing something else. Like, you just go back to international soccer. If you wanted a game of football in 2 players, that's way better than this. It's not going to last long. This is awful. Five-a-side, no. What did it get? It got 15%. Yeah, it's rubbish. Awful game. What did you think?
This game, European, why?
I don't know.
Straight from the What the F*** files comes this oddly weird entry into the football game canon, I guess. Stirring title music, though, wasn't it? Stirring, it was quite, the music was quite brisk and in your face. I was like, wow, okay. No. And he's got those sort of limited options. And then the top-down perspective, like you said, it's the first time we've seen that, which is okay, I get it. Graphics. Basic is a word I would describe, really. That's those black. It's black lines and dots denote the pitch on varying coloured backgrounds.
Yes, with a grey border.
Yeah, does it work? I guess it works. I mean, you can bounce the ball off the wall, so I'm guessing this is indoor soccer because. Well, yeah,
I think it's because they just didn't want to bother with any kind of corners. So it was probably a football game, but corners or throw-ins.
It works, I guess. Bottom section is the score and the time in that kind of just there it is. Can't miss it really.
No.
It's all very basic. This player sprites confused the hell out of me. I wasn't sure who was in what team other than the goalie. And that's only because they were stood in the goal. I got the ball and then I wasn't sure if I was passing it to myself, passing it to the opposition. They never seemed to do anything with it. I always just seemed to get the ball and score. And that was only if I almost ran the ball into the goal. Mm-hmm. Like you said, if you can do it from straight on, he just saves it. I don't know. It's just really, really, really weird. It wasn't challenging, or was it? It's all a bit flickery and a bit bitty at best, really. I mean, I don't know. Five-a-side? I mean, the really strange thing here for me was, did you score a goal in this?
Yeah, I was 10-0 up.
Yeah. Did you get this weird sound? I mean, I got this, I don't know if yours was speech. Mine was this kind of harsh screech that came out of there.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell was that? It was haunting. So I don't know what it was. It was really weird. I don't remember that ever happening if I've ever played any kind of these games and scored, whether in reality or otherwise, where there's just this kind of devilish, almost like the sound, like a sound of an 8-bit possessed Sidget going, Aah! It's like, what happened? It's all a bit naff, innit, this? The outer semblance maybe of something to that top-down thing, which is an interesting, footnote to this otherwise rubbish game. But there's nothing here, really, that's holding it together, is there? It doesn't control very well. It's got that silly control system. The long ball isn't long. It's high. So
Unless you go
it's a high ball.
And it is long.
You're diagonal. It's just a bit of a £2 joke in it, really. 15%, yeah. No, not for me, this one. Just a real odd thing. Really odd thing. No more to say about that.
There's no more to say about it. It's not very good. Let's move along. Let's leave that
where it be.
Nightmare and move on. And Graham, you've got the next one. Well, it's time to become Mickey Mouse and tell us all about Mickey Mouse.
Well, who's the leader of the club that's made for you and me? Yes, Mickey Mouse it is.
Is he?
Apparently.
Okay.
This is Mickey Mouse, the $9.99 this, 72% in Zap from Gremlin Graphics, coded by Stuart Gregg. That's the guy that did Gauntlet 2 and Mask, and he later went on to do Rick Dangerous. The graphics are Kevin Bulmer and John, just says John in the blurb. And the musician is Mr. Ben Daglish. So the story for this game, I'm going to read the scenario from the instructions, and I want you to bear in mind that when they did this, they just went on some kind of story raid. So they just went around, raided a few different, they'd got a few books on the desk, picked out the salient bits from those, and just kind of bolted it into a thing. So just in this first paragraph, I'll give you the idea of how they did that. So the wicked witches of the north, south, east, and west have stolen Merlin's magic wand and given it to the awfully horrible Ogre King. Okay. So we've got a bit of the Wizard of Oz there, a bit of Arthurian legend. Anyway, using its power, they will, between them, rule Disneyland. The Ogre King has used the wand to cast a sleeping spell over the land. He then broke the wand into 4 parts and gave each witch a piece to guard. The wizened witches have moved into the 4 tallest towers of Disney Castle. Why would you go there? And banished all of the drowsy Disney characters. They are each using the pieces of wand they guard, along with some enchanted water they also stole from Merlin, to fill the castle with hideous monsters. This water is the key to Disneyland's salvation. Merlin had 1 bottle of water hidden, and this he gave to Mickey Mouse to use to defend himself as he rescues the wand. The water must be used sparingly or it will run out. Mickey starts his search for the wand at the bottom of each of the 4 towers. The only way is to go up. The only way is up. Baby, you and me now. On the way to the top, Mickey will encounter the witch's gruesome guardians. Squirting some monsters with the enchanted water pistol will turn them into potion bottles or special magical bonuses. Some monsters, however, only respond to a sharp tap on the head with Mickey's rubber mallet. Although this often causes them to split into 2 smaller monsters. If Mickey collides with a meanie, he loses more of his precious fluid. His precious water fluid.
Precious fluids are leaking
precious
out.
Fluid. But it can... precious fluids leaking. But it can be replaced by collecting the potion bottles. When Mickey reaches the top of the tower, he will find fireballs being held at him by the witch. If he can reduce the witch to a pile of bones by throwing mallets at her, he will collect the pieces of the wand she was guarding. Once all 4 pieces are retrieved, Mickey has to face the fiendish, flying, horrible Ogre King. Squirting him 15 times with the water pistol defeats him. But that's not easy. If Mickey doesn't succeed at first, he can try again. If he fails a 3rd time, the game is over, and Mickey will have to return to the bottom of Tower 1. That's it. So that's the scenario. That's the scenario you found yourself in.
That's quite all over the place.
Yeah, sounds like it's almost like it's been raided from different sort of ideas and sort of bolted together, doesn't it?
Yeah,
a little bit. And anyway, I'll come to sort of the thoughts and feelings about this as we go through. So it is a big license. This, I mean, goodness me, Mickey Mouse, Walt Disney, Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney. I mean, goodness me, Mickey Mouse. That's huge. It's big. It's massive. It's massive. It's a huge thing. It's massive. Yeah. Gremlin Graphics, fresh from their success with Mask and Flintstones. Take on the bloody might of the Disney Corporation. Are you mental? Are you mad? Are you mad and mental?
They did do thingy, didn't they? Didn't they do Basil, Great Mouse Detective?
Yes, yes, they did. Yes, actually, yeah. That wasn't wholly great, was it? That was the Game of 1,000 Turds.
I wonder if that was a bit of a deal, though. You do want Mickey, you're going to have to do this.
Yeah, maybe. So I suppose in license terms, this is one of the biggies, isn't it? This is a big one.
It is, yes. Yeah.
And you really wouldn't want to mess that up, would you? You really wouldn't.
No.
So a well-realised loading screen, which it is, leads to a pretty dull title screen where you can choose the music and effects. And the SFX in the game, I would choose because the music will eventually get to you.
Oh, the music.
Music will get to you in dark ways. And then fire starts the whole show. Why they're not using any of the incumbent Disney branding on that title screen? Beyond me. but they don't.
No.
The game window is essentially split into two areas for the main tower part of the game. The larger upper section is the game area, where you control your Mickey Mouse sprite, and under that is a smaller UI area, where on the left you can see what Mickey is holding in his hand. That's either the hammer or the water pistol. Mallet or the water pistol. And on the right you see a mini-map of the tower with your position indicated and your current water level. If the water, which is kind of how they measure energy in this, runs out, it's game over there and then. You have 3 lives to use up. You start the game at the bottom of the first tower. Each one is made up of levels connected with a ladder. You can ascend the ladder on your mission to get to the top and kill the witch, who, when killed, will give you a piece of the wand. Collect all 4 pieces and you will confront the Ogre King. Squirt him, as I've said, the number of times, and you've done it. You get 3 attempts at that, and then it's back to the beginning of the tower if you don't do it. All of the towers have enemies of different types that will bother you. These can be squirted with your water pistol. You can also avoid them, or you can hit them. If you touch them, they drain your water, and so, as you can imagine, draining the precious fluid away is not good. There's also doors on the levels, and some of these will allow you to enter mini-games. You can't get to the witch at the top unless you've boarded up the doors, and to do that, you've got to go into the mini-games and get the things to board them up with. And there's 4 mini-games. These are the puddle maze, the bubble machine, the pump room, goodness me, and the dripping taps.
That's what you get after going in the pump room.
God's sakes. So in the in the puddle maze, Mickey has to avoid or shoot monsters created by the dripping taps. To complete the room, he must find and collect a hammer, some nails, and some wood. These will be found lying on the floor and enable him to board up the door. Also in the maze is a heart, which gives Mickey a bonus life. A skull will take a life off Mickey. The power pack allows Mickey to burst the water monsters without being touched. Don't burst. That word shouldn't be used in here, should it? The power pack makes Mickey flicker until its effect wears off. Weird. The spring makes Mickey's mallets bounce off the walls of the maze. Once the hammer, nails, and wood have been collected, Mickey can leave the maze through the hole in the floor. In the bubble machine, you stand on a platform which moves randomly left and right. Below you is a glass tube full of enchanted water. This slowly leaks onto a pipe which runs across the bottom of the screen. At regular intervals along this pipe are nozzles which produce bubbles. Mickey must shoot the bubbles by throwing his hammer until all the water has leaked out of the tube. If a bubble reaches the platform, it eats it away a little. Acidic bubbles. It's weird in a Disney game. Eventually, the bubbles will eat a hole in the platform. Acid for blood, which Mickey will need to jump across. An extra hazard is floating ghosts, which slowly follow Mickey around. Prolonged contact with it will cost Mickey a life. Hitting the ghost with the mallet will dispose of it, but another one will soon appear. And then the final 2 pits, the pump room, the long-awaited pump room. A long pipe snakes from top right of the screen down to the bottom where Mickey appears. At several points along this pipe are holes with corks in. At the top right is a large monster operating a pump, which creates little monsters. The little monsters patrol the pipe, and they pull out the corks, which Mickey has hammered in. The mallet will deal with them. To complete the screen, Mickey must get past the force field, which is protecting the large monster. The force field will be lowered when some of the corks have been hammered in. The corks Mickey needs to hit are different each time. To add to Mickey's problems, water dripping from the corks creates a floating ghost when it hits the floor. This will stun Mickey or take a life from him. And then finally, the dripping taps. There are 4 dripping taps here, which need to be turned off in a specific order. The taps handles spin or flash to indicate which should be turned off next. The floating ghost in here, again, is drifting around the screen. If it touches Mickey, he will be stunned or lose a life. Moving platforms help Mickey travel from tap to tap, but he must be careful not to be squashed between a platform and the floor or ceiling. So there's those. Essentially, that's the mainstay of the game. Those 4 mini games and the tower bit of the game is what you've got to sort of contend with. So the graphics vary a lot in this game. The main sprite does look like Mickey Mouse. I'll give him that. It's not too bad. It animates okay.
Like he's had a few too many pies.
I was going to say, he's a bit of a chubby Mickey Mouse, as I remember him, but Mickey Mouse-ish. But you could put big round ears on most things and they look kind of Mickey Mouse-ish. So anyway, Mickey Mouse. The pace of his movement, though, is a bit sluggish. But it's passable, I guess. But it's okay. Sluggish.
It's okay.
It's okay. The backgrounds for the towers are not very well drawn, though. Large slabs of light blue or half-tone-ish pixel colour blocks for walls. An enormous amount of brown flooring.
So much brown.
And then door and ladder details in more brown. Brown on brown. It's not good, that.
No, it's not.
They look somewhat simple and they lack any of the details that would make them more interesting. So it's just, they look a bit too kiddified. They look a bit too play toy. They look a bit too... Some of those
sort of paintings on the wall look a bit...
it's not,
they're not great.
The enemies that appear, the ghost, the skeleton, the headleys. For some reason, there's ghosts in it called headleys.
What, Lamar?
Yeah, Headley Lamar. They're okay, I suppose, as sprites go, but there isn't a lot of them, and they move really slow as well.
Yeah.
So, and the mini games also suffer from the backgrounds problem. They're all kind of dull. Some of them have got darker shades of brown and really bad shading on things, but the sprites are all the kind of the same sprites that throw out. So the sprite work, okay, passable with, fat Mickey Mouse, but the rest of it, backgrounds and stuff, didn't think of that, did they? Didn't put much thought into them. Lots of brown.
Yeah.
So much brown. I'd mean, Mickey Mouse isn't famous for its brown. Disneyland isn't famous for its brown areas. It's quite vibrant colours, vibrant reds, blues.
And seeing as this seems to have picked up for a lot from Sorcerer's Apprentice, because if you hit some of the monsters, they split in two and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the music as well.
Yeah, and the music as well. So yeah, and you would think that there'd be a bit more detail in those backgrounds.
Yes, I would have expected this bit, and it's something that comes back to sort of bite this game really. The main tower section, so then that's how the game plays out. You control Mickey, you go up and down ladders, you pick up the things, and the idea is you've got to survive those mini games in order to get, because you have to board up the doors in order to be able to get to the witch in the first place. So when you get there, you got to kill the witch and get this one piece, and then do that 4 times. Kill the ogre. Happy Mickey. Mickey's happy. Mickey. The main tower section feels slow and ploddy. It's just not very exciting. Not very exciting at all.
No.
Which should not be. The enemies do drop bonus items for you to collect, and there's a whole bunch of those in the instructions. I'm not going to bore you with any more of them, but there's a whole bunch of things you can collect that all do different things. Water bombs, birds' heads, glue, shield, repulsor. They all do various things to or with Mickey. And the idea is that they'll sort of help you, but they don't add any real excitement. You just still kind of plod around. Entering the mini games, it doesn't get much better. They all feel really dreary. Who wants to be fixing leaky taps or collecting planks of wood and dropping hammers on taps and stopping acidic bubbles? When did that become a magical Disney thing? You don't go to Disneyland, and it's not famous for you go into the magic Disney castle and have to avoid the acidic bubbles or turn off taps. They would not have made as many happy faces in Disneyland had that have been the case.
Dark Disney at this period in time, remember? Dark Disney.
It certainly is. It just doesn't feel very magical or indeed very Disney-like, which is a massive problem in a game based principally around their central main character. So on the surface and underneath this probably is maybe a little good adventure game. Probably not on this platform. Put this on a Nintendo or later the Super Nintendo or something like that. Something that has a bit more of the sprite oomph and the detailed backgrounds that would lend itself to a game of this type, and you might get something a bit more fun. On the C64, because the backgrounds were an afterthought, there's a nice little sort of idea of a simplistic arcadey adventure type game in here, but it's just painted with really bad colours, and it's just not very compelling, and it's slow. Then there's some ideas that sort of have been explored, and there's some main sprites, I guess, that are okay, and they look like what they're supposed to be. No issue with that. But this just is dreary. You don't feel any sense of danger, which is a similar problem that we noted in the Rupert game many moons ago, because it's Mickey. What danger can Mickey Mouse be in? You fight with a bubble gun, for goodness sake.
Mm-hmm.
Now give him a samurai sword and let him go wild.
Don't go, no, we can't do Dark Mickey. We can't.
No, but I'm just saying, Yasagi Yojimbo with Mickey Mouse in would have been great. No, that's a cartoon character doing what cartoon characters do with compelling backgrounds, and it's still medium res, and it's still on a Commodore 64. There's ways you can make these games more interesting. It doesn't have to be a fat Mickey Mouse running around turning off taps. It doesn't have to be that. But did they not learn the lesson from when they did the Flintstones? Because wasn't this the exact problem that Gremlin did with the Flintstones? Take a game, lots of comedic premise, remove all that, and reduce it to its core, which is a guy painting a wall grey.
Yeah.
It's the same central idea. It's not always fun to have the cartoon characters doing boring things, because it's still boring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, Mickey could have been jumping around. Look at the later Mickey games that come out, the Castle of Illusions. I know it's way in advance of this, but if you're going to do a Mickey Mouse game, that's the kind of thing you would expect Mickey to do, jumping on things. And we've seen Jana Sisters. So is that there's room in this world to have a platform game with Mickey Mouse in it, jumping over things and having to do the same, doing the same tasks he's doing here, just not climbing endless ladders, fixing door frames. Yeah. It's just dull. It's lumpen. That music as well. That doesn't help.
No, it really doesn't.
All you'd have heard, and then shortly after that was just a click of a gun as I was trying to blow my brains out because I couldn't stand it anymore. Background's boring. Characters okay. Everything else is dull. Lacks the detail needed in a game like this, considering it's set in a magic castle full of spooky ghosts with a talking mouse, an adventurous one at that. Where did all that bit go? I don't want to fix taps as a mouse. I don't want to do that. No. Did you like it?
No, I'm not. I wasn't sure what to make of this one. I thought this was actually better and more original than the usual Gremlin fare we've seen of late. Yes, it's climbing a tower, but they tried something with it. I think more so than and it worked better than what they did with the Flintstones one, which was bloody awful. But I'm going to. It's weird, actually, because we're going to look at another game in a moment, which has similar-ish design type stuff. We'll come to it anyway. But this is nowhere near as good, in my opinion. The Mickey sprite And the various ghouls and spooks, they look pretty good. I thought they were all right. The skeletons, the ghosts, the monsters, sort of the big sort of Frankenstein type things, I thought they were all right. But the tower is really boring. You've just got ladders on either side. You just walk across flat brown to climb another ladder on the other side. You don't really have to actually engage with any of the monsters or anything, apart from just to get a key every now and again. Find a key, go in a door, do a minigame. Minigames are boring, blah. So I didn't really like any of the side games that you need to do. And as you've noted, I found the drilling music started to put me off after a while. When it went to that high-pitched screech after a while, I was like, oh my lord, what's going on here? I think as a cartoon to game port, I mean, it's one of the better ones we've looked at, but that's not saying a lot because the bar is pretty low. This is just stepping over, a slightly raised paving slab in quality level. So the problem with this is the moment-to-moment play in this is not that interesting. Although it kind of hangs together, I guess. They've tried to do something different with it. Thank God, at least they've tried. It's just dull. It's just a little dull to really engage me. I did read the Zapped review, and they said the same thing. Said, but it picks up in level 2. I'm like, I'm bored by that point. I'm bored. Yeah. I don't want to get to the second tower because I'm just bored of everything that you're doing. So, this was just it's not terrible. 72% way too high. It's average. It's a 50ed. It's in the 50s, late 40s, late 50s. This is, if I was writing this, feedback for this would be satisfactory.
Yeah.
I'd be using the word satisfactory a lot in my feedback of this. And maybe some good sprite work. But yeah, they've lost the magic of Mickey with this one, certainly. There we go, Mickey Mouse. Got one more left. Let's get to it. Graham, Fernandez must die.
He must.
He must die. In the South American country of the Democratic Republic of El Diablo, the government has been overthrown, and in their place the evil dictator Fernandez now rules with an iron hand. You have been summoned by the exiled leaders of the country and tasked with taking out Fernandez by destroying his military bases, all 8 of them, and freeing the people from his evil yoke. That's the story. It's courtesy of the back of the box, which also does that thing of from the time of including Atari ST screenshots.
Cheeky.
Which look a whole lot better as one would expect than the C64 version, but there you go. It is. It just says screenshots from Atari ST version. It's like, this is the C64 box, but the visuals are weird, but, put them on. Anyway, this is the latest game from Tony Crowther. Mr. Anthony Crowther is back.
He's back
in this one,
form.
It really is, in commando form. And this is the first, he shared coding duties with David Bishop, but it seems that the art and the sounds are all by Mr. Crowther himself. And this is the first game release from ImageWorks, don't you know? ImageWorks are an interesting lot. I had a look at what else they will be doing. They've got, what have they got? I was looking, Speedball. They've released Speedball. Well, and 2. Predator 2, Burst Samurai, Fox Fights Back. They look like some interesting games coming from them, but we'll see when we get to them. The game itself is kind of lacking the usual options for a Crowther game. You usually just loads of weird options and stuff, doesn't it? But it does offer a simultaneous 2-player mode, which is a nice addition. Nice. And I'll come to what that does offer a little later. The title screen itself has got a big scroller in the middle with some raster bars, and it's got the current top scorer in big letters at the bottom. It's kind of there's not a lot on it, but it takes up a lot of space. It's weird.
Yeah, it's big and bold.
It's very big and bold. It's very Tony Crowther. It's like demo effect in your face. You can press 1 or 2, and that picks single or 2-player mode, and fire button gets things going. So when the game starts, this looks like a simple enough commando variant. You start by being dropped off by a truck that drives on from the side of the screen, and you sort of climb out the back of that. And from here, yes, it's commando. Your job is to push vertically up the oddly designed maps, blowing up and shooting all the standard enemies that come running at you. These come in various guises, with regular blue soldiers who just kind of mill about, and red ones that actively hunt you down. They come and gun for you. You're armed with a gun, which fires at the tap of the fire button, and grenades, which fire if you hold the fire button down for a little while, and then they are thrown as an arc to land and blow up anything they hit. As you progress, there are tanks to be destroyed, gunboats, motorcycles, lorries, trains, and even planes that can be killed for bonus points as you work your way along. So far, so commando. But I thought this game has a few things up its sleeve that make this more interesting than it at first seems. Pressing run stop, which is thing, it kind of brings up a map of the game, and you can see all the 8 territories that you've got to go through lined up side by side with where the base is located on them, so you know where you have to go. There's no, it's not, it doesn't obfuscate anything. It's like, here you go, here's the map. There's like 8 territories. They're all there. Here's the bases, all lit up on each one. It's like, right, okay, and kind of, it's not hiding anything. It's like, this is where you got to go, so what you got to do, and that's quite useful. but it doesn't tell you the whole story of how you need to navigate this game. Because if you just progress upwards, you'll on the first level, you'll eventually hit a wall, but you can't get through. So you'll be like, what the hell? Where do I go from here? You just can't move through it. Because some walls you'll be able to blow up stuff, but here you've got an impassable wall. So you've got to take notice of what's going on the side of the walls. Because in the door, there's along the sides of the levels, you'll see these doors in the walls. If you blow them up with some form of explosive, it allows you to move inside them. And this is how you get from area to area. So all these areas kind of coexist. This isn't a push to the end of the first one like Commando. So this is a more interconnected world. So you've got these all 8 levels and you've got these walls on each side, which allow you to move from one to the other sort of on a sort of horizontal plane across the map. In each of these areas as well, there are prisoners to rescue, and you can do that by blowing open their cells, and there is treasure to collect for bonus points. Once you move out, so if you continue around this across this level, they're kind of one screen wide, but you move out the other side, it takes you to the next area on the map, so the next one along, and you have to then navigate from there, finding more doors to access the inner links between the areas, and that's how you kind of progress. And so this game suddenly opens up into a much more non-linear design, and it's quite interesting in that respect, because what you've got to do is you've got to need to backtrack down through the levels, because although this is like Commando, the screen scrolls both up and down, allowing you to navigate back through the levels. So you've got to go up and down, round, and it's not just a push forward one. You've also got to go down to find the walls, maybe to get to the other one, or come back on yourself. So there might be a secret area in a level you've been to, which you've got to sort of go up and then come down and back into, and things like that. There might be some walled off. Like the first level's base is up above that wall you can't get past, so you've got to work your way up and then come back through and around it, and that's how this kind of works. So so these inner areas, and playing through these inner areas, it was almost kind of it sort of reminded me a bit of Into the Eagle's Nest in those bits. They sort of felt a little bit like that. It's like a scrolling version of Into the Eagle's Nest, because they're little kind of puzzly areas where you can see how it's like sometimes you got to blow up walls, you got to get things to destroy, you got to sort of have enough explosives to get the prisoners out. And I like the way this has been designed to sort of obfuscate and change up that usual method of playing these games, like Ikari Warriors, Commando, Who Dares Wins, and it does something different with it. Beyond this, if you press the Commodore key, it brings up your status screen, and this shows the number of medals you have collected in this run. There are 7, and these are awarded for destroying enemy vehicles, buildings, collecting gold, freeing the prisoners, destroying the bases, and for freeing all the bases and destroying all the bases. So if you've got 7 targets to get here. This screen also tells you how much gold you've collected and how much remains, and how many prisoners you've rescued and how many remain that you've got left to sort of free. The UI in the game tells you your score. So on the main screen, you got your score, your health, the number of grenades you have left, and the number of lives. So there's some clever stuff in this as well. So you don't just have a one hit and you're dead. You can take a few hits. There are health packs to pick up, which replenish your health. So it's not so punitive. There's a lot to this. It doesn't feel like, in those Commando games with Ikari Warriors, one bullet and you're down. In this, you can take a couple of hits and you can manage to get, and you can get your health back and you don't lose your lives. And you've got 5 lives as well. So it's quite generous. So it's all right. The
unusual for Tony Crowther.
I know, yeah. I think it's Dave Kirby, whoever's come in with him sort of thing, has maybe toned down the difficulty and sort of added some extra sort of design here. The high score in the middle of the UI is also used to tell you how many bases you have blown up. It's got 8 digits, and with each one you destroy, one of the digits is highlighted. Very clever. That's a really nice use of the UI and sort of letting you know how many you've done. So that's really nice. A lot of good design here. And reading the Zapped review, they just kind of wrote this off as just another Commando knockoff. I think there's quite a lot more going on here. We saw this with Rogue, where they said, it's just Gauntlet. It's like, no, it's not. There's more to this than I think you're letting on. As you progress, you'll find jeeps that you can get into, and this speeds your movement up. You can rip around in them. They're right fast little beetles. So, in jeeps, they can shoot as well. And you can run soldiers over in them, which is always good. So, and it even has its own health bar to keep an eye on. Now, in one player, you shoot in the direction you're heading in. But in 2-player mode, one player drives and the other aims and shoots independently. And hell, if that ain't like an early version of the Warthog in Halo, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, exactly that.
It's that, isn't it? It's 2-player mode. You shoot in one direction, driving in another. That's just it's 2D Halo. 2D Halo mode. Throughout the game, enemy and friendly planes fly across the level, dropping sort of vertically, dropping enemy hunters. I quite like the way that they're sort of parachuted in. The enemy hunters, the red ones, and they'll come after you, and they come after you. They're after you. You've got to take them out quickly. But the good ones, they drop extra health and extra grenades for you respectively. So it's all good. There's loads of stuff going on in this. It's a busy game. There's always stuff happening. If you blow up the tanks, it allows you to pick up explosive rounds, which you fire instead of bullets. That allows you to blow up the buildings that are dotted around the levels and collect the loot inside them. There's loads of stuff. So you've got destructible landscapes, you've got destructible things, you've got all the enemies to blow up, you've got everything going on. There's stuff blowing up left, right, and center. There's a lot to this game with the interconnected levels, the blowing up of buildings, the general mayhem, and the story of like overthrowing a dictator in South America. With all that mayhem, blowing up buildings, I was also reminded heavily of the Just Cause games, which are essentially the same thing. Go to a sort of South American type place to destroy, work your way through the levels, blow stuff up, and obviously much bigger, but it's the same kind of ethic here. The music on the title screen is by Cartho, but it feels, I'm pretty sure some of it's actually straight ripped from a Galway tune. I just couldn't place it. I was like listening to it, go, it
sounded familiar, didn't it?
It sounded really familiar, little snippets. I was like, that's a Galway bit. I can't place it. It did sound like a Galway song.
I think it's out of Yeah Kung Fu or something like that.
It could very well be, yeah, which would obviously be Jar, I guess, then. And the sound effects are a little odd at times because some of them sound like they're out of Power Droid, but, it's sort of in the interstitial in the start levels and things like that. The graphics are a strange mix of colours. They're a weird mix. It's got a weird look, this game. Level 1 is 2 shades of green and blue.
Weird.
It's an odd thing. But I thought the sprites were well animated. And all these sort of tanks and everything, and the trains and the planes, they all look quite good. They die well. They flicker into their skeletons, go, sort of. I always like that in these kind of games. Little dying animations always make these kind of bit more interesting. And everything moves at a pace. There's no slowdown that I noticed. There's only there's a little small raster flicker for the scrolling down the bottom, but it's easily, it's not that prevalent. You barely notice it. But it's a busy game. There's lots going on, and it's all in one load as well. So it's quite a chunk of game here in one load. When you die, you're given a funeral, which I loved, and your progress and medals are displayed as well. Like the flag flying at half mast, the little guy comes up and puts your medal on your coffin. I like those kind of things. This is really nicely thought out. It plays similarly to Commando, and I see what they were saying, but the levels are weirdly laid out with like odd metallic-like barriers barring the way. The walls look weird because of the colour scheme. It's not quite weird, and they're sort of just jutted out, and you have to drive around them and stuff. So it plays like Commando in the fact that you're running and gunning and that kind of thing, but it doesn't feel like Commando to me. I thought the design of this was very good, and the inclusion of the two-player mode and how this brings something new, like the Jeep and stuff, and running around, and you have to push up and work together. I thought it was really good. Add to that the medals to collect, which, let's face it, they're early forms of achievements. Because you don't need to do them. Don't have to do them, but they're like, if you want to go do them and earn all 7 achievements in the game, you can do it. That's kind of a really representation of them. Feels like a very forward-thinking game in terms of what it contains. I enjoyed this more than I was expected to, because at first, my first play, I didn't get all the little side bits. I wasn't, it took me a little while to sort of understand what was going on. I wrote this off as a weird-looking Commando clone, so I just ran to that wall, got stuck, and went, what? And then I started to explore and play and run around and have a dig around and stuff. And I thought, actually, no, there's more to this. So the different things that it was doing, how it structured its levels, and the amount of extras around the side. I thought this really impressed me far more than I was expecting to. And this got 51% compared to Mickey Mouse's 72%. It's just no. This is way better. This was way much better than that 51%. I mean, this for me is pushing 80s. I really, really enjoyed this game. I thought it was great. And I would love to sort of, if I had the time, to push further and sort of see how all those levels connect together and try and get those bases blown up. I thought it was really good. Really, really enjoyed this. And the best Corrado game I've played. But what about you?
Yeah. I mean, it's very demo crack intro, isn't it? I mean, I have for a while I was thinking, has this Tony Craver cracked his own game and just put like a crack throw at the beginning? Yeah. But that's the quick. And I think he just thought, if you can't beat him, join him. I can do that kind of stuff. What a quirky thing this game is, isn't it? I quite liked it. I mean, I think you're exactly right. If you thought that this was just a Commando clone, you'd be way off the mark. There's a lot going on in this game. So this is one of those games where there's a lot more to it than meets the eye initially. It's so well put together, and the graphics, they got hung up on the graphics in the Zapped review a little bit. They're like, the graphics, it's just typical, blah, 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 blah. I thought maybe they were on the kind of pudgy side, maybe, but they work. And I thought they were detailed enough, and it all worked in the space that it was in. Mm-hmm. So the sprites were the right size, you could run around, there was no bugs, there's plenty of them, there's loads of stuff to shoot at, and bullets are flying all over the place. There was nothing wrong with its code base in this at all. And what you end up with is a really fun sort of military exploration game. I mean, I wouldn't say it was. It has the Commando trope of having a single-player military figure shooting at things. But the kind of exploration that Rambo sadly lacked. If Rambo had this kind of exploration, it would have been more like a Rambo game.
Yes. Yeah.
So I thought it was really good. The especially nice touch of getting in and out of the vehicles and the 2-player options, as you said. And it scrolled so smoothly, and it was quite a lot of fun. I found myself getting deeper into the game and finding new things and interesting things about it on quite a continuous basis. I'm like, oh, you can blow the buildings up. Oh, there's things to collect in there. Oh, there's people in there. Oh, I can drive the Jeep. Oh, I can do... And it's one of those kind of games, and you think, this isn't just... Zapp's must have just loaded this up and gone, another Commando clone, switch it off.
Yeah.
Silly to do that. Maybe the price is perhaps, I don't know if it's $9.99. You get a lot of game for your money. I think it's deceptive.
I think it's worth a tenner. I think this is a good full price game.
So the music, okay, it was a version of something, but it was good and it was okay for the game. Music and all the little touches and around the edges, all good. Graphics nice. One load, incredible, considering we've got multi-load games that are, nowhere near as good. I thought this was sadly overlooked by the Zapped team, who'd written this off with a kind of a smug, another one of those. And it really isn't that at all. This is one of the, I think, best Crowther games by a mile. Certainly the one that's got the most playability to it, and you don't feel like you're going to have one life and that's it. It's genuinely good, and it shows you how good a programmer Tony Crowther really was, because there's some really clever stuff going on in here. I liked it a lot, and I think you're right about all those. I mean, I never noted all the little future-facing game tropes, apart from the one with the 2-player option, which I thought that is very Halo-y, 8-bit Halo. But all the other ones, totally get that. Give this a little bit more exploration. You go into some of those offices and you have to pick up certain things, and you've got yourself a mini military arcade adventure with all the shooty bits as well. It's not far off doing that anyway, and it's like you said, that's straight up the more modern games alleyway, isn't it? So
yeah, it's like it's kind of a better version of what like Infiltrator and what was the other one, that Microprose one, Airborne Ranger, were trying to do, in my opinion. This does it. This kind of sits that happy middle between arcade and a bit more exploratory, having to work your way through and more stuff to do and stuff.
Yeah. So. I mean, you give this game a few more vehicles to fly about in and you've got Far Cry 2, the 8-bit version, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely.
You're not that far off, because in all those variations of the sort of map that you go on, put some of those with less in it, like a desert and stuff, and you're not far off that game. So I really like Fernandez Must Die. It's been horribly overlooked, I think, and it's certainly one I would recommend that people go and play, because I think it's very deceptive and it's a very clever little thing. So yeah, I was playing it for ages as well. Really, I was in that game for ages, way longer than but it sort of balanced itself, because I wasn't playing some of them for very long.
No.
But that one, I was there for ages.
Well, I think it's like what you said. It's one of those games that I think both you and I had the same kind of learning experience, where at first it just feels like Commander, then you see the doors, then you get in the Jeep, and then you can do that, and now there's players there, and now I'm in a different thing, and now I can go downwards, and there's there's all those kind of different things, and I can blow the buildings up, and there's destruction, and there's just things that just keep happening, that I think just sort of engage you, and you think, well, what else is there? And then you realise, there's challenges, there's the achievements to go for if I want to really sort of dig into it.
Absolutely. And I felt like I had a fighting chance as well.
Yes.
Which is nice. You know, I wasn't just dying and dead, done. I was like, I could run around, I could get about. I definitely recommend that you go, people who listen to this who regularly think, I'll play along with the games, definitely check this one out, because I think you'd be very surprised. I was. Yeah,
I was too. Really good that was.
Yep,
Fernandez Must Die. There we go. That's our 4 games. They've been, good start and good end.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse was, well drawn. Mickey
was okay. Yeah. There we go. That's our first 4 games. We're going to go take a break. And when we come back, we're going to look at TV and cinema. And just a warning, it seems like September 1988 was the time for new shows. It really does. We'll go have a look through all them in a moment. So see you in a bit.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David Hearn is out now. Growing up in the 80s is a chore for Sarah, who feels misunderstood by her parents and badgered by Reese, her bothersome brother who incessantly prattles on about his treasured computer games. When Reese tells her one of the games tried to pull him inside the computer, she laughs off his fanciful fib. She waggles the joystick to disprove his fairy tale and is pulled into the computer. Now trapped in games she'd never had any interest in playing, how can she possibly beat them? With the help of feisty Nell, another trapped player, can Sarah find her way back home, or is it game over? An evil madman, a hostile planet, bloodthirsty robots, a never-ending throng of karate experts, and relentless digital soldiers will do their best to ensure Sarah never escapes. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, find out if there's a way out of the beige bread bin of betrayal for Sarah in Escape from the Commodore 64.
And we're back. We're going to be looking at film and TV all in one big lump for September 1988. So let's get straight into it. 1st September, Graham, to celebrate BBC Radio 1's FM Switch On Day, BBC One's Top of the Pops is simulcast, I love that in the word, with that station for the first time, allowing listeners to hear the programme in stereo. This edition is presented by Steve Wright and Mark Goodyear. Top of the Pops is then simulcast weekly with Radio 1 until August 1991.
Wow, I didn't know that. There's a few things I didn't know there.
Go on.
I ddidn't know, it completely blew my mind that Radio 1 wasn't on FM until 1988.
Yeah, you just take it for granted, don't you, that that's where it is?
Yeah.
98.1 or 0.8.
And all because the police moved frequency.
What, like Sting?
yeah. The UK police, it says, were occupying the 97 to 99 megahertz frequency range. So Sting got told to, sling his hook.
Sling his hook, back to the moon.
And they moved to the 100 megahertz frequency. And that left the 97 to 99 available, of which Radio 1. And weirdly, Radio 1 was the only one that wasn't on FM out of all the BBC stations.
Really?
Yeah. Do you know why?
Why?
Because they thought that it would clutter up the dials of radio displays if they had too many in the little area.
Right, okay.
It's just unbelievable, isn't it? So it just threw me completely that Radio 1 wasn't in stereo until 1988. That's well late in the day, isn't it?
That is, yeah. I'm surprised it was that late. I don't remember. I just remember it happening. I remember this being a big deal when it went into stereo and simulcast and you could listen to it. And
some people, Adrian, celebrated in unusual ways.
Did they?
The group Bros were just flown around in a helicopter.
And are they still up there?
They were never let back down again. They just flew off. Weird, isn't it? And apparently only 65% of the UK was covered by the FM transmission in 1988, though. It's just mad. It's just you just assume that the whole of the UK would have it.
Well, is that 65% of the landmass, or is that population? If it's the landmass, I'm not surprised. You don't want it like on top of Ilkley Moor.
I don't know, but it was only 65% of the UK was covered by the transmissions. So I'm guessing that's that's the landmass, I guess.
All right. So, well, it's weird.
Yeah, strange. I will post a little advert. I won't post it. I'll stick a little sample. There's the intro, the trailer for when Radio 1 was going to FM. There's a little trailer that I'll put on. It's not very good audio quality, but it's hilarious. So I'll put that right now.
This is Radio 1 FM, testing on 98.4 megahertz. Yes, Radio 1 FM is coming soon on this frequency. Switch on date is Thursday, the 1st of September. No more mushy medium wave with all that interference. From the 1st of September on this frequency, you'll be able to hear Radio 1 in clear, exciting FM stereo. Make a note of the frequency, 98.4 megahertz for Radio 1 FM.
And then people can listen to that and make of what they think, because it's quite funny.
I haven't heard it, so I'm going to listen back and go, hang on a minute, go. Yeah, it's funny.
Good. Word of warning, though, I don't know if I'll put it in stereo, which kind of defeats the purpose of putting it in, but...
It does massively.
Yeah, in fact. Yes. Anyway.
2nd of September, TSW, Grampian and Border begin their 24-hour broadcasting. They're all getting in on it.
Yeah, and they're all nicking Granada's nighttime service, because that's what it was for all of them.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
Yeah.
They were simulcasting.
Simulcast. That's the word of the day, I think. Simulcast.
Yes.
7th September, repeat showing of Paul Hammond's Death Row documentary, 14 Days in May, telling the story of the final days of Edward Earl Johnson as he awaits execution on Mississippi Death Row on BBC One. The film is followed on 14th September by The Journey, in which lawyer Clive Stafford Smith returns to Mississippi in an attempt to posthumously clear Johnson of the crimes to which he always professed his innocence.
Happy.
That's chirpy, isn't it?
Yeah. Was he actually innocent in the end? Was he pronounced innocent?
I have no idea. I didn't look into it. I don't know.
Crazy.
I guess will we ever know? Did they ever know?
Well, somebody will find out. Now, somebody who listens to this podcast will probably know.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, 7th September. Also, BBC Two screened the Time Watch episode "Shadow of the Ripper," written and hosted by Christopher Frayling, and looks at the 100-year-old Jack the Ripper murders.
That's happy.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no point, is there? We all know that Jack the Ripper was a 100-foot sea serpent. I mean, everyone knows this. It's common knowledge.
Was he, in fact, a 60-foot sea serpent from Scotland? Yes.
Did we make this podcast for a quick buck?
Why would you keep you warm tonight? If you're wondering what we're talking about, go and watch. We've said this so many times now, it's getting boring.
Absolutely.
Go and watch Amazon Women on the Moon, for goodness sake.
Absolutely. Join us in saying bullshit or not.
Bullshit. I've actually got that. I'm going to put that sample in right here.
Extraterrestrials, strange phenomena, missing persons, lost continents, myths, and monsters.
We examine these mysteries to determine, are they bullshit or not?
So I have that as a little sample. I was going to use it as when I got a text message on my phone, but no, never do that.
Never do that in a meeting.
No, don't do that.
So we want to do this. Bullshit or not?
Yeah, don't. I used to have, many moons ago when I worked in a very large branded telecoms company, we'll say. I won't name them. I once changed my receiving email tone to the sound of Frank from Blue Velvet going, let's fuck.
Dear.
I did not. Wasn't what you call classic management friendly at the time. It seemed like a really funny idea. My friend, another podcast friend, Paddy, will no doubt be chuckling to himself because he sat next to me when that thing went off, and we all chuckled, and then we all were like, "Oh, that's bad. Maybe I shouldn't have done that." So
yeah, it's like the time I changed my screensaver on my when I was working in a similarly big company. I changed my screensaver to the words "You are nothing," and for you, that's a step up. And I went for break, and then I came back, and the managing director had wandered past.
Ooh.
And seen it. My boss was not happy with me.
Fight Club territory,
sorry.
that.
Sorry.
Just go in his office and pull a Fight Club on him.
Yeah, I guess it was a bit. 8th September, Channel 4 drops plans to invite Sinn Féin leader Gerry Adams to appear on an edition of its late-night discussion programme After Dark, following objections from other contributors.
Yeah.
God, to let Ollie Reed on.
Yeah, like anyone ever watched that show anyway. The two viewers of it were like,
Had
oh,
an audience of 4.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the people on it. That's the only program. It's the only program in British TV history that's viewing figures went to single figures.
It's amazing. Generally amazing. 9th September, Casualty returns to BBC One for a third series, moving from its previous Saturday evening slot to Friday evenings. There we go. So you've got a list here, haven't you, or something? What's this?
So I found, because Casualty is a causality, as I like to call it.
Causality, yes.
Causality is a program of, if anything, unusual deaths.
It is.
Well, are they unusual? Are they just accidental, incidental? I don't know. But the key part of the narrative of Causality is that guy places badly wired plug on sofa, falls asleep. His acid bottle that you happen to have falls on his, I don't know. The accidents happen is the first rule of Causality. And then it led me onto this website, which was, and it's a wiki page, which we'll post in the show notes. It's a big, long list of unusual deaths.
From Casualty or just in general?
No, these are just general deaths.
Oh, I thought they were from Casualty. I was like,
no.
Okay.
No. And I did look for one that was specific to Casualty, but it's all because it's a soap opera. There's mainly deaths of characters in there and beloved characters of which there's been quite a few. And so much has happened in that short space, fairly long space of time that Causality has been broadcast. There's been, I think the hospital's even burned down a couple of times in that. So it's the classic soap thing. But I was going to try and sort of configure a game to play.
But I don't think it really works, does it, with just real
No,
deaths?
because it's a bit moribund. Because there's some of these are genuinely real people who've died, and I thought I can't really just list off, start chuckling away at people who've made horrible mistakes.
And I suppose it just becomes a Darwin Awards, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is, because and there's people in that list like Steve Irwin, who I thought was an amazing guy, who was obviously pierced in the heart by a short-tailed stingray's barb.
So weird.
But every now and again, just one throws it, sort of pops out at you. There's a guy here who died in a fold-up bed. I'm not going to say. I figured if I don't say the names and just say how they happened, So a guy died in a fold-up bed. There's a guy that died from painful bottom injuries. In fact, I'm not going to go any further with that one. A guy was killed by a lava lamp, which exploded, and a shard of the glass pierced his heart.
Ooh.
Yeah, crazy. A guy was killed through the suction from a hot tub drain. He got drowned. It's honestly, this list is mad. We'll post it in the show notes. It's just a mad list of, because if everyone says to you, God, imagine, if anyone's ever been injured doing that, I can tell you, not only they've been injured, they've probably been dead. Guy got killed by a cricket ball, A guy got his head stuck down a rabbit hole and died. So it's just so many stuff like that. A guy was sucked into an aircraft jet engine.
Oh, that'll do. It always reminds me of the old David Baddiel stand-up routine where he had this list of weird deaths. And there's this one that he says about where this guy was found. He was naked. He had a bin bag over himself, over his head, that he tied up. And he was found suffocated. But inside it, obviously some sexual thing, but inside it was a budgie.
Oh, God.
and although the death's quite tragic sort of thing, the sketch routine is like, how do you get to that point as a sexual fetish? How do you get to the point where, well, if I put a bag over my head, then I need a budgie? Just odd.
The last couple of things I'd say is there's one particular one that caught my eye here where there was a pallbearer of a guy carrying his mother's coffin to a funeral and he slipped, fell over, and the coffin landed on him and hit him on the head and killed him. She's kind of an awkward twist. And then finally, there was one I was reading about, which is sort of semi-humorous. A man was tragically, a hunter, was a big game hunter, was tragically killed with his own rifle. And when the police came to investigate it, they just found all that was left there was these 4x4. His rifle was on the seat. His sort of high-velocity rifle was on the seat. The dog was sat there and his body with his head blown off. And when the police finally got to sort of testing, trying to figure out what happened, it turned out that the dog had inadvertently sniffed the trigger of the gun. And it had blown his owner's brain out. And the way they knew it is because there was a nose print on the trigger.
So there you go.
Yeah, well, I just imagine these two dog nose holes on the trigger, and a dog sat there going, right, yeah. So you're going to be, because apparently the guy had allegedly been mean to his dog as well. So maybe the dog was like, right, that's you done, mate. Boom.
Blow his head off.
There you go. Anyway, go and look at that website, but just remember, don't have nightmares.
Don't have nightmares. Nick Frost says, don't have nightmares. 17th September to the 2nd of October, the 1988 Summer Olympics are held in Seoul, South Korea, and broadcast to television audiences around the world. The BBC provides live coverage, as does ITV, in conjunction with Channel 4. This was to be the final time that ITV would broadcast the Olympic Games, and Channel 4's only broadcast of the Olympics. ITV shows daytime coverage, while Channel 4 airs the overnight and breakfast coverage. Yeah, it's because I think after about 1988, no one really cared.
I didn't watch a lot of the Seoul Olympics, although the idea of there being a Seoul Olympics must have sort of caught the interest of the 70s Soul Brigade. Yeah, the Soul Train, the Seoul Olympics. I imagine there's just a really long Soul Train. People of the world join in for the
Soul
Olympics.
Olympics.
That's it. And they're all just in the world's longest line, like an Olympic line. Imagine that's how they lit it. They were just dancing. The two of people like funking out, dancing through the Soul Train, and then with the Olympic torches, like, hey, that would be cool.
Would be good. I would like that.
I would have watched that, but no, I don't remember much about the Seoul Olympics.
I would have. Yeah, no. 20th of September, more tragedy. The actor Roy Kinnear dies at the age of 54, who the previous day had fallen from a horse during the making of The Return of the Musketeers in Toledo, Spain. Quite sad, really, died.
Yeah, sad. I know he's probably on that list.
It probably is, yeah.
Fell off a horse. I like Roy Kinnear. He was always a fun actor to watch.
He was, yeah. He was a bit of a mainstay of staple of British comedy shows and films, wasn't he? And he was brilliant in the first two Musketeer films. Always muttering away under his breath, getting stuff to do.
He's in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother as well. So go and watch that.
30th of September, presenters Mike Smith and Sarah Green are seriously injured in a helicopter crash in Gloucestershire. Yeah, and they got engaged and married after that horrific accident. And that is, I don't know how they got out of that. Looking at that picture that you posted.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, they were both quite badly injured in that. Yeah. But it's a bloody miracle they survived that crash.
Yeah, because it's just folded up on itself, hasn't it? It's just
absolutely. It looks like one of my toys from circa about 1978.
Yeah.
Whenever I had one of them, it would have been chewed by a dog, stood on a few times. And that's what they ended up sort of trash. That was my, it looks horrible. Unbelievable, really. Mad that they got married after that as well.
Yeah, they did. There we go. That's TV. Right, back into new shows. 3rd of September, Noel's Saturday Roadshow ran for a couple of years.
Precursor, isn't it? The BBC's infatuation with Noel Edmonds at this point was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it started on Saturday Swap Shop, hadn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, he just never seemed to be off the TV one way or another, did he, for a while?
No, he's always coming up with these catchy ideas. You seen what his most recent one is? I saw something where he gets people to look at products. This was on Gogglebox. It's a quiz show, and he puts 3 products. He goes like, right, here's Sainsbury's tonic water, here's Schweppes tonic water and here's some other tonic water. List them in order of price, and people have to work out which is the cheapest and which is the most expensive.
Right. Well, that's a bleak old game
when they
show,
say
isn't it?
something, he reveals it. He goes, "Oh," like that. But you watch it and you're like, "Oh, you actually get quite invested." I don't know. Noel Edmonds, he's got the gift of that thing. How stupid if you pitch Deal or No Deal to anybody.
Yeah. What's in the box?
What's in the box? Yeah, not thing his head, but what was there any skill to it? No. So if someone walks out and there's 15 people there with boxes, and they just have to eliminate them one by one until they get down, and the banker sort of offers them money, and they can accept it. I think, yeah, that's it. Well, is there any questions? No.
Weird.
Any quiz? No.
I mean, this was the original version of what became Noel's House Party, this Noel's Saturday Roadshow. This introduced the Gunge Tank, the Gotcha Oscars, and the Wait Till I Get Home sequences, which were all carried into the other subsequent shows.
Is the Gotcha one the one where they sort of go to someone's house now? Did that one? Did they set up someone's house and then they turn them on?
No, that was... I'm not sure what that was. A newer one. The gotchas are where it was a bit like what used to be Beatles sort of set up.
Ah, right. Okay. So game for a laugh type thing.
Yeah, that Beatles about type idea. Yeah, where then he'd spring, but it was done on celebrities, I think. So they would spring out and go gotcha with his little joystick thing, I think. And of course now it's pretty, nobody wanted that.
The little what's it?
Pops his little what's it out. And it's obviously now repeated by Ant and Dec with their Saturday takeaway and Michael McIntyre's kind of
indeed
game show stuff that he's doing.
It did kind of set it's sort of built on that earlier format. It kind of like took the Generation game and those kind of things.
Completely.
The sort of evolution of those things, wasn't it? Just to something like, let's just make it a massive. What was the other one? There was I suppose Game for a Laugh was an early precursor to this as well.
But if you think there's little bits of don't forget your toothbrush and things like that sort of all rolled into this, really.
Yeah, well, that took its influence from this, didn't it? This was earlier.
Yeah, totally, yes. So it's like what I mean, but it's like this that sort of format for that show and a big audience, participatory stuff, lots of running around in the audience. They still do it now, so it's... It's Ant and Dec doing it now, but same sort of thing.
True. 3rd of September, Eggs and Baker.
I resent this show and all it stands for.
Why?
Because I bloody knew as soon as I saw the name, I need to even look it up to know that was Cheryl Baker in a cookery show.
Yeah.
because I know that because if I'd have been around, I would have thought of that.
True. It ran for 5 years.
Remember that? Remember my game show idea was Punch and Judy, where Judy Finnegan was asking questions, and if they didn't know the answers, Frank Bruno punched them in the face.
I do.
I've got Eggs and Baker. Honestly, come on.
Yep.
Bloody show. She was still in bloody Bucks Fizz when she was doing that show. So periodically she had to either nip off to do Bucks Fizz stuff or she'd bring Bucks Fizz on the show and they'd just do a musical number halfway through.
Well, if you got your own show, why not?
Eggs and Baker. Goodness me. Why wasn't that Tom Baker anyway?
That would have been much more interesting because he sells them, doesn't he, for like $1.29 a dozen?
Exactly.
As we've seen the photographic proof.
Photographic evidence exists of this.
Yeah. Also on 3rd of September, later on in the evening, you could have watched the first episode of The Hitman and Her. I knew you'd love this. I knew it. As soon as I saw that this started, I was like, Graham's going to like this.
As soon as I see the words Hitman and Her, I hear that stupid Cocoon Time Rider music. Da, 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 da. I'm going to put a sample of it right now.
Right. Okay.
Hey, goodness. Pete Waterman. Pete Waterman came up with it, didn't he? It was his idea.
Yeah, when it's just cheapest of cheap, isn't it? They basically just travelled around northern nightclubs and filmed it.
Apparently, he was sat one night, switching through the TV channels late at night, and there was some documentary about something really boring. He was like, this is rubbish. And then from that, he decided to go around all the nightclubs in Britain filming people doing stupid drunk rubbish with Michaela Strachan of all people.
Yeah. Was it not live? I thought it was live.
No, it was recorded earlier in the Saturday.
Those people
played it later.
Pretty drunk.
Yeah, it was recorded on the same day. They recorded it in the evening, sort of late, so 10 o'clock-ish, and then it was broadcast at 2 or 3 a.m., wasn't it? So
okay, I guess so, yeah. Yeah.
So
Crazy.
It was live-ish. if you can call it that. And it was a bit, well, we all know what it was no surprise that a lot of Stock Aitken and Waterman tracks were played on that particular show.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So, it was an outlet for lots of their stuff. But I watched it. Me and Gary, and you as well to some extent, I suppose. But this we had to watch it.
It was classic coming home from the club.
It was.
It's like 1, 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Just sat there, put his Hitman hair on and going, oh, God.
It had
what's
to be
this
done.
Rubbish?
And it's on for hours. The show was about 2 hours long.
Yeah, they were long shows. And
it had all these little sections in it, past the mic. Discoveries were made in that show. Sonia was discovered in that show.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, and then later went on to do tracks for Stock Aitken and Waterman and stuff like that.
What a shock.
Legendary thing, past the mic, where they got drunk people to do crap karaoke.
Yeah.
And then there was the style bit, the bit where people used to show off their fancy club style and clothes. Oh, it's actually hilarious when you think about it now.
All interspersed with just songs and people dancing.
It was a long old show, loads of discoveries in it, but it was compulsive watching. And Michaela Strachan she was kind of good looking at that time, wasn't she?
Oh God, yeah. She was
good. She was easy on the eye.
Lovely. Yeah, Hitman hair. There you go. I'm sure I reckon everybody that listens to this in the UK watched it. I reckon.
Oh, without a doubt.
The demographic of our listeners will be will around our age. They were going to be watching this.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Also, 3rd of September, Motormouth started, which was a Saturday morning children's television series produced by TVS and broadcast across the ITV network for 4 series. It was presented by 5-strong lineup of hosts. The 2 of them had previously been on number 73, Neil Buchanan and Andrea Arnold, joined by new recruits Caroline Hanson, Tony Gregory, and Julian Ballantyne. Don't remember much of Motormouth. Did you remember much of Motormouth?
No, by this point I was totally out of watching the morning shows, really.
Yeah,
certainly anything ITV were producing, so.
Yeah, anything pre-12 o'clock I want awake.
Yeah, or if I was going to watch anything, because I don't know if Going Live's on now yet, but if it's not there, it's heading that way, and that was it. I was watching Trevor and Simon and all that. So.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Motormouth, never got a look in.
No, also 3rd of September, Square Deal.
I remember nothing of that.
It's a British sitcom created by Rich Dominic, which ran for 2 series. The series starred Lisa Ann McLaughlin and Tim Bentink as Nigel and Emma Barrington, a yuppie couple whose apparently comfortable lifestyle is brusquely shaken by the arrival on the scene of Sean, an incurable and impoverished young romantic.
Sounds wishy-washy.
Yeah, well, supposedly it becomes a love triangle, and then she finds that he's more interested, and he finds someone else more interested as well. Nigel does, so they both end up splitting up by the sounds of it. Doesn't sound particularly interesting.
So it's nothing square about that at all.
No. There was actually, in the US, there was a KFC deal by the same name, and I've linked to an advert there for it, for the Square Deal KFC, where there's a man really, really enjoying his chicken in that advert, so it's worth a watch.
Good chicken.
5th of September, No Frills, another British sitcom. It consists of 7 episodes. That did well. Starred Kathy Staff. You remember her? She was Nora Batty.
I was going to say, no, oh, God.
She's a recently widowed woman who moves from Oldham to live in London with her divorced daughter Kate and goth granddaughter Susie. I've linked there to the opening episode. I didn't get more than 2 minutes in.
No,
it was awful. It
won't be good, will it?
It was terrible, awful. It's just the goth granddaughter just made me laugh loads. Like,
for some reason, we just couldn't get the formula, could we? Every now and again, we get it really right, but there's so much rubbish in between.
Oh God,
whereas the US tend to get it more right than not. So Friends, Frasier.
Yeah, but is that only because that's the only ones we get over here? The ones that actually make it. There's probably thousands of ones that don't work.
Quite possibly, but we know we produce a lot of turds as well. Yes. But we get it right now and again. But these ones, they're just so naff, aren't they? When they come across you, like, ugh, rubbish.
They're really bad. 5th of September as well, we had Jim Henson's Mother Goose Stories. I watched the intro to this. That theme tune is no Fraggle Rock. I can say that for sure.
Very sanitized, isn't it? Very safe. Very kids show that.
Yeah, it was a children's television hosted by Mother Goose, who tells her 3 goslings the stories behind well-known nursery rhymes. I don't remember that all. Also, 5th of September, Tube Mice.
I hate that show.
I've never watched it. Brilliant animated series, British children's animated series about the adventures of mice who dwell in the tunnels of the London Underground, or the Tube.
Just add the word badly animated.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. But this had some characters voiced by Terry and Arthur from Minder.
It did.
There was Arthur Daly and Terry Strong.
It was, playing 2 sort of dirty mice.
Yeah, I can only think that they would it was trying to sort of do that Danger Mouse thing where you had David Jason and Terry Scott.
And they sound exactly like this. They sound the same so they play the same characters.
Yeah, they're not putting on voices, are they? It's just George. No. It's just George Cole.
It's just them.
It's just them.
It's weird.
It's dead odd.
Really strange.
Not very good anyway. There's the opening episode there I'll link to. 6th September, Count Duckula.
No. No. A spin-off nobody wanted.
No, it was a spin-off from Danger Mouse where he was a bad guy for sort of one of the enemies every now and again, and he got his own. Ran for 5 years. It was quite big, and each one was 22 minutes long, and there was 65 episodes were made.
Incredible it had lasted that long, really. It was crap.
Yeah, I know. One for me, that one. 7th September, Toxvig. I got this from some website. This information-based magazine program was aimed at 10 to 14-year-olds, and Sandy Toxvig, whose name was accompanied an offbeat look at the world by Paddy Ward, Vincent Brimble, Deddy Davis, Janet Spencer-Turner, and Christopher Whittingham, and Jules Denby, who played an assortment of characters from spontaneously combusting tea ladies to a spoof Fat Man and Robin.
Did you watch any of it?
Yes, I watched a bit.
I watched the beginning bit. Apart from because it has the intro that sort of occurs before it, where the guy sat in front of 4 ginormous Borsatec CRT monitors. And then the opening sketch featured so many horrible stereotypes, one after another, that it could actually be used as a lesson on how to not be stereotypical.
Yeah.
No, because it's set in Italy, and there's an Italian waiter goes, "Oh, mamma mia," and then it's like, and then there's a British guy going, "Oh, ignore them, dear," when they wave their hands in the air, and it's awful. Yep. It's awful. Just no.
I did read though that it was 3 months from initial idea to airing. And they were writing 2 scripts a week, Sandy Toxvig and the other woman who wrote it. So there was no quality control. It was just churn out and make.
No kidding, there was no
from
quality
pitching the idea to it being made.
There was no humour in it.
No, there wasn't. No.
Awful.
And I watched a bit as well where they do the bit about whether they get kids in sort of on a panel, around sort of having a chat about issues and stuff going on.
I hate
Issues,
stuff
man.
like that as well.
12th September, Stop It and Tidy Up.
Yeah.
Another British animated children's cartoon. I didn't know anything about it. Stop It and Tidy Up. It's got this episode, 2 protagonists, Stop It and Tidy Up, interacting with various other inhabitants of the mythical land of Do As You're Told.
Yeah, for God's sake.
Each episode is 5 minutes length and narrated by Terry Wogan.
Yes, we're deep into BBC, anti-BBC here. Mm-hmm. And bloody Terry Wogan, honestly. I mean, he has got an unmistakable voice, old Wogie, but...
He was voice of Eurovision, wasn't he?
He was the voice of Eurovision, and of course the floral dance.
He was.
I wondered if you crossed the Hulk with Terry Wogan, would you get Hulk Wogan? And what would that be? What would happen? What would that be like?
Probably.
Hulk Wogan.
12th September, Defenders of the Earth.
Defenders of the Earth. Defenders. Out of the sky, his rockets ignite. Jets into battle, flying faster than light. Flash Gordon, Lord of the Jungle, the hero who stalks. The beasts call him brother, the goes to war. Phantom. Defenders of the Earth. Defenders. Master of magic spells and illusion. Enemies crumble in fear and confusion. Mandrake. Defenders of the Earth. Defenders. His strength is a legend. His skills conquer all. Armed with his power, we never will fall. Lothar. Defenders of the Earth. Defenders. With our new young heroes proving their worth. 4 become 8, defending the Earth. Defenders of the Earth. Defenders. Defenders of the Earth.
Oh, you've got to say it properly. Defenders of the Earth. Out of the sky, his rockets ignite.
The bit I always remember is Master of magic spells and illusion. Enemies crumble in fear and confusion.
Mandrake. Defenders of the Earth.
Great theme tune. Really good theme tune. 4 become 8, defending the world.
Oh, it's brilliant. Defenders of the Earth. Yes, it's a classic, that one.
Yeah. Like I said, all I remember is the theme tune because it mentions Mandrake and no one survives his attention. So it's an American animated television series produced in 1986 featuring characters from 3 comic strips, Flash Gordon, the Phantom, and Mandrake the Magician, and Mandrake's assistant, Lothar. And they were opposing Ming the Merciless in the year 2015. That's a confusing setup.
It's just loads of characters that have quirky things.
It's really weird.
They all have things that conveniently can be made into small accessories that can be packaged into plastic.
That's true. There's the children as well. Rick Gordon, son of Flash, LJ, son of Lothar, Kshin, adopted son of Mandrake, and Jeddah Walker, daughter of the Phantom.
Interesting. Now, there are some things that are interesting about that. And one of those things is the diverse range of characters in terms of, and I'm just going to put it out there bluntly, in terms of their skin color in this, which is a really good thing. So, because a lot of the time, some of the early cartoons were a bit white man cartoons, and that wasn't very nice. They weren't very, very representative of all the diverse cultures of the world. Defense of the Earth does have a variety of different cultures and different skin tones and all of that in, and it's good for that. It's good. It's diverse. I like it. It's good it's a good thing to have at that time as well. So the actual cartoon is gibberish and crazy, but its heart was in the right place, I think, in that aspect.
I mean, it's a bit of a shame that Lothar, who is the main black character, is Mandrake's assistant.
Yeah, there is that. It's stupid, really, but at least they've got women represented in there in stronger characters and stuff like that. It's quite interesting to see how they were doing that, and that's a good thing. Nowadays, we've got the Avengers, which sort of totally takes up the reins. I'm surprised that these Defense of the Earth haven't been made into some kind of film, or have they?
God, probably straight to DVD.
Well, is there just as an aside to this? Has Flash Gordon ever made an appearance since that one with the Queen music and Brian Blessed going Hawkman and all that?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Goodness me, is that so? That's the definitive Flash Gordon movie. That.
Yeah.
Goodness me. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
With Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, freeze, you bloody bastards. Wanton swearing in that always makes me laugh.
Wanton.
And the guy from Blue Peter who got killed by him as well, stabbed with that dagger. Yeah.
Is he? I thought he died from putting his hand in the rock.
No, that gives him the madness, and then he begs to be killed by the Baron, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, he did.
Spare me the madness.
So he stabs him.
Yeah.
14th September, The True Story of Spit McPhee. This is definitely one for our Australian listeners. If you could help us out here, I've got the first episode here. This is a 1988 Australian miniseries set in the 1930s and based on a novel by James Aldrich. I don't remember this at all.
Never heard of it.
No, but happy to have someone inform us of what the hell this was all about. 15th September, The Snorks.
No, I don't remember that either.
I watched them and they did look familiar, but it's an animated television series produced by Hanna-Barbera. Total of 4 seasons from September 15th, 84 to 1989. The program continues to be available in syndication as part of the fantastic world of Hanna-Barbera's 3rd season.
Wow. Okay.
God, who knew? Tells you so many new series this month. 18th September, On the Record was a BBC political television series that replaced the BBC political television series This Week, Next Week. We got rid of that. It was presented by David Dimbleby. Ran for a total of 492 editions. Produced over 15 series.
Serious politician chats, wasn't it, on that one? Things like that.
Which, apart from 2 special ones, were all 60 minutes long. That's quite a lot, isn't it? It's quite a lot of footage.
It's a long time, yeah.
Yeah. 23rd of September, A Gentleman's Club.
Oh, Lord.
Another British television sitcom broadcast in the UK on BBC Two. It was set in the fictional Albany Club in London, and the series dealt with the changes afoot when the club was forced to move with the times and admit women.
My Lord, it sounds crap.
It doesn't look good from the bit I looked at. That's from Nostalgia Central, which is a website I found which has a sort of lowdown on all these sort of TV shows.
Unless it's like Phoenix Night, so that could be quite funny, but it won't be.
It didn't look like it was, no.
No.
More interestingly, 23rd of September saw the premiere of Beauty and the Beast.
Interesting is a word you could use for that.
It's very interesting. Catherine Vincent.
Utterly stupid crap.
Yeah. So for those who don't, I mean, I don't know it's got Sarah Connor, someone who looks like David St. Hubbins. It's the Beast.
It's what happens if a cat merged with a hair metal guitarist.
Yeah. I think that's what Joey Tempest is reminding me of. He's slowly turning into the Beast.
He is. My God, look at that.
But it's a serial, it's one of those American TV shows from the late 80s that we got over here, which was weekly adventures of Sarah Connor and the Beast. It's Beauty and the Beast. I don't know. Did you watch this much?
No, I bloody well didn't. Utterly crap.
Yeah. I didn't watch it much either.
Over-romanticised crap as well. And his stupid makeup. No.
What's wrong with his makeup?
It looks stupid. Honestly, it's just stupid. I don't like the way they did his top lip.
It ran for 3 seasons.
Oh, it's weird. I don't know. What is he? I guess he's a beast, but he's not, is he? He's just, he tried out for Metallica and he didn't get in.
It's Ron Perlman.
Yeah, can you not tell by the eyes?
No, I couldn't.
Yeah, it's Ron Perlman, but just honestly.
God.
If someone said to you, Ron Perlman and Sarah Connor, you wouldn't instantly think that image.
Would not. Oh, I will do now, though.
So if Ron Perlman was genetically merged with with
Joey Tempest.
With Joey Tempest and a tiger, That's what you have. And even her hair was actually straight when she went into that picture. It just instantly went to that sort of crimpled effect.
It was the amount of lacquer coming off his that just floated through the air and just boofed her hair up.
And that's just one of many publicity pictures. Some of them you can Google these yourself. Some of them are so horrific, I couldn't bear to look at them.
I moved on quickly.
She must have felt weird kissing that. Poor old Sarah Connor. No wonder she went all military and went on a kill crazy.
Absolutely. She must have been so thankful when Terminator 2 got made.
Absolutely.
23rd of September as well, we could have watched the first episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Wow. Was that the first time in the UK? It seems ages ago.
It was. Yeah, I remember watching it. I watched it again because I've linked here to the first episode. The first episode has, I can't remember, it's some American guy, Arden Chandler or someone, who I recognise, but I can't remember his name. It's got Josie Lawrence, Paul Merton.
Of course.
And what's his face? Oh, I've forgot his name now. He's always the one at the end, the posh one, the one who always just
Proops?
No, John Sessions.
John Sessions. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
because in the first episode, the first game they have to do a book story in the style of an author that they've chosen. So we get Stephen King. I can't remember her name. Lucy, who wrote Little Women, is Josie Lawrence, and then we get Paul Merton doing the people who wrote Jack and Jill or whatever, and then he does John Sessions does Charles Dickens. It's good. I mean, it's one of those shows that it lasted about 12 years, but lasted a lot longer in the States, I think.
Yeah, it was going on for years, though, wasn't it? And by the way, sadly, John Sessions passed away in November 2020.
Oh, I sad. He was always funny. I always liked his bits. There were some classic episodes of that. That was a staple 10:30 Friday night viewing.
It was.
And it would never fail to make me laugh. I always used to like, I think thingy as well, Clive Anderson.
Clive Anderson was good in that. Yeah, Clive Anderson did it.
He presented it, didn't he?
He presented it, yeah, but it had Greg Proops in there. You had that. It was that large American comedian.
Mike McShane.
Mike McShane, he was really good. And there's some really good sort of fun stuff in there. Josie Lawrence was always good. She was just really unusually hot back then as well.
Yeah, she was, yeah.
I remember us all sort of going, wow, Josie Lawrence is a bit of all right.
Yeah, so you had Paul Merton, Josie Lawrence, Sandy Toksvig, Peter Cook was on it, George Bent, Jonathan Pryce. He was very funny when he was on it. Greg Proops, Mike McShane, Tony Slattery, Ryan Stiles, Colin Mockery.
Colin Mockery, that was it. I really like Colin Mockery.
Yeah, loads of stuff. They had the musical ones, Richard Branch doing the music. It was John Sessions, Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie. They've all been on it. It was just one of those. It was just a great program. Very funny. It just showed how funny those people were just to come up with stuff on the fly.
Yeah.
And there's some great moments. I really enjoyed Whose Line Is It Anyway. And finally, 25th of September, you could have watched the Franchise Affair.
No. You could have, but I didn't.
I had no idea what this is. It's based on the 1948 novel The Franchise Affair by Josephine Tay.
Right.
Shrug.
That skipped my bookshelf, that one.
Yeah, absolutely. If none of that floated your boat through the month, and surely Defenders of the Earth and Beauty and the Beast and Whose Line Is It Anyway should have done, on the 16th of September, you could have gone to see Buster. We've spoken about this in the albums and the singles. It's everywhere. It's a multimedia extravaganza, Buster.
Yes.
This is the story of Buster Edwards, who was one of the Great British Train Robbery. I don't know much more about it, if I'm perfectly honest. Do you know much about it?
No, not much more than it was one of the biggest currency robberies, wasn't it? It was one of the biggest value robberies for quite some time. And they all scarpered, didn't they? I think he was on the run for years.
Yeah, they all linked it to Spain, didn't they, where they couldn't get extradited from?
Yeah, they were all sort of all over the shop, yeah. And then I think eventually they got hold of him, didn't they, and locked him up.
Yeah.
He did 9 years inside, I think it was, and was released. And then he ended up selling flowers in London at a flower stall. And then someone convinced him to write a book of his things that happened during that time.
Right.
And that book was what led to the film Buster.
Ah, okay, there you go.
And then later he was found dead.
It was just another one of those very popular British movies, what the British public seemed to sort of catch on to as a lovable scampy rogue, you know.
Lovable rogue, yeah. I mean, there were some horrific things about that robbery. You know, one of the security guards was horrifically injured and life-changing injuries, and I think the impact of the victim's impact gets lost a little bit in all of these things.
Exactly.
Always, isn't it?
It was quite a romanticised view of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and just as an aside, and because we've mentioned Jack the Ripper earlier in the podcast, there's a really good book. I'll post I can't remember the title of it now. It's just literally gone straight in my mind as soon as I said those words. But I'll post a link to it in the show notes, which is about all the events of what happened about the Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, but it's written from the perspective of the victims, because obviously the victims are all just portrayed as just street women, ladies of the night, just carved up and whatever.
Yeah.
But there's actually, that's not quite the truth of it. They are victims at the end of the day of a horrible murder, not just clocked up chalk points on the board of, some serial killer. And so there's a really good book, which is an account of their lives and tells the story of them. And it's a genuinely interesting book. So I'd recommend to go and have a look at that.
Okay.
I could remember what the hell it was called. And without looking at my bookshelf, which I could do, but I'm not going to because
don't do that.
It's too far away.
Yeah, no time. 23rd of September, you could have gone and seen Poltergeist 3. I'd advise you not to.
No, what a stinker that is.
It really is. That's the one where they moved to town. There's only Carol Ann left in it from the original cast, and I went there.
Yeah.
By this point, everyone else has buggered off. So the second one's not terrible. The second one's okay. It has some scary moments in, but the third one is really bad. Now, I'm just going to give you a little quiz here sort of thing. Can you tell me which of these taglines for the film are real and which are not? See what you can get here. So the first one, no matter where Carol Ann goes, she never goes alone.
Probably a true one, that.
That is true. Look who's moving to the city with a vengeance.
That's probably true.
That is true. He's found her.
Probably. It sounds true, but it's probably false.
No, that's true.
Oh, dear.
They're back again.
Oh, God. False.
That's true.
Jeez.
Guess who's back in town?
False?
No, it's true. In fact, I was going to say all these are true.
Oh, goodness.
They're
Where
all
are they all
terrible.
from?
It's just off IMDb.
I mean, what are they?
I
What's the purpose of
don't
having
know
them?
what country they're from, but these are all taglines for this film.
Oh,
Trapped in the limbo between life and death, there are only two ways out.
Is this the one with the floating? She's being followed by a floating ghost preacher thing.
Yeah, that's the second one. There's the preachers in the second one.
Because he floats up to the window with the skyrise. They're in a high-rise building, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, the last tagline, it's not a tagline. It says, if you remember how the poltergeist ghouls knocked her house flat, wait till you see what they do to a Chicago skyscraper.
Oh, for God's sake.
A terrible tagline.
Nobody knew what to do with it, did they?
No.
Utterly rubbish.
No, it was dreadful. It really, really bad. It's just a really bad film. But I would say, here's a quick question for you. Is it as bad as the remake of Poltergeist?
No.
No, I don't
that
think
is
so
utterly, utterly, utterly awful.
It is really diabolically
really
awful.
Bad.
If you want to watch a remake of Poltergeist, watch Insidious.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, I agree.
It's literally, in fact, I've been watching a lot of these sort of films, and like it's reminded me that these new Blumhouse films, all these new Blumhouse films, are just surreptitious remakes of 80s films.
Oh, they are, yeah, because he's remade Amityville, hasn't he, as Conjuring, and
and he's remade Chucky as
this
Megan.
new doll one, yeah, which is rubbish, by the way. Don't watch that.
I've watched it as well. It's
rubbish.
It's exactly what you expect.
Yeah,
having watched Child's Play, it's just so they're just remaking these 80s films in modern trousers.
They are. Thankfully, they haven't hit some of the. There's some really good. I watched them. Have you watched Stage Fright? The films. Have you watched that recently? Stage Fright.
The Suave one.
Yeah, I watched that recently, and it's absolutely. There's a new print of it out. Is why I watched it.
Okay.
It is absolutely ace. It's such a good film. I definitely recommend. They have remade it, believe it or not. There's a remake somewhere. Don't watch that one. So under a different name.
Because was it an Argento produced one in it?
Fright? Yeah, the original Stage Fright, but there is a remake called something else with a similar premise, but it's not. Don't watch that one. Watch the original Italian.
Oh yeah,
one.
Yeah. I watched
really,
that for ages.
really, really violent, very gory, and very good.
Yeah. Also, 23rd of September, you could have gone if you didn't fancy Poltergeist 3. And why would you? You could have gone seen The Deceivers. Fact-based account of a secret society of murderers and of the man who exposed them in British India, 1825.
Aye.
Starring Pierce Brosnan, Saeed Jaffrey, and Shashi Kapoor.
Good cast. Good director.
And directed by Nicholas Meyer, who did Star Trek 2 and 6.
He did? Yes, he did.
Never heard of it. Sounds quite interesting.
So somebody asks Pierce Brosnan a question and he goes, I can't, at some point in that.
Jesus.
Couldn't be bothered to flesh that joke out any further. Just wanted to get it out of the way.
Well, the Society of Murderers sort of thing, and he'll never forgive them for the death of his son because they die. And his son is one who's killed, and so on. Anyway, we shouldn't make light. It sounds quite serious. 23rd of September, Ophelas, also known as Pathfinder. This is a young Shami man, which is a band of vicious raider slays family and flees to a nearby village where he learns he must become a Pathfinder.
Totally escaped me that one.
I know no more.
I don't think it's an English language film, or at least it's I'm not sure. It's directed by Niels Gaup, so I don't know where that's from.
No, so apologies, we don't know. However, the big one probably for this month is 30th September, and that is Good Morning Vietnam. So this is the story of Adrian Cronauer, who was it's the story I was reading around in this earlier on, and he basically says it's a story based on me, but if I'd done those things, I'd be in prison.
Yeah.
Still to this day. So this is Robin Williams playing Adrian Cronau, who was a radio DJ in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and he takes over this show from this really boring presenter, and he sort of is crazy. It's basically Robin Williams being Robin Williams. So he's doing all these voices and playing all the tunes. And it was a massive hit. It introduced lots of tunes to the UK and the US. There's loads of sort of classic songs in it. But what happens is at one point he befriends this girl, and then she gets him out this bar just in time. It gets blown up, and some GIs die, and he is banned from actually announcing it on the radio show, even though he was there and saw it. And he locks himself in and announces it anyway, and then gets banned. But the guy that get in, there's just loads of calls to bring him back, and it's a Robin Williams film about being in Vietnam and being a radio DJ. It's very good. It's it's directed by Barry Levinson. So it is a very good film. I do remember it, and it was a huge deal at the time. It was a massive hit. I seem to remember.
Remember the trailers? It got a real heavy airplay, didn't they?
Yeah, and it's just one of those films that just struck a chord. I think it was just the right person in the right role at the right time. And it was just, it was just everywhere. It was one of those films, and its soundtrack did it no harm. It had loads and loads of big hits from the 60s, which were very, very popular in the late 80s with all the TV adverts, the sort of Levi adverts and all those kind of things we see in the charts. They were. So it was this huge, it was sort of perfect time moment and everything, and it was kind of coming in on the back. It was a different, it was a more, not comedic, because there are moments in it, but it had that sort of upbeat feel, but then that sucker punch of when the realism of what Vietnam was actually about and the war, after films like Platoon and Full Metal Jacket and those kind of Hamburger Hill. It was sort of all based in and around that, and just another exploration of America's, within the war, basically, within that Vietnam War, and what it meant and how they was trying to cover it up. And it's kind of covering that sort of media side of things about how they didn't want that sort of, the view to be held out, because there was a lot of, because as we know, the Vietnam War is, it's known as the first televised war, isn't it? And
that's right.
All the stuff that came out of there, you never get now. Everything's heavily sanitized, and this kind of sort of explored those kind of themes, I think. Good film, though.
Yeah, do you know, I don't think I've ever watched it all the way through. And that's not because it's rubbish. That's just one of those films. I haven't seen it, or haven't seen it all, or I have seen it and I just haven't seen it in a long time, and it's got merged with a few other films of the sort of sitting the same oeuvre. Right. But I remember it being quite good and very well received at the time. I just don't remember much about anything in it other than that sequence where he says, "Good morning, Vietnam." I remember that bit. But yeah. Yeah, I remember him playing that, and then the music, and I remember seeing I think that ended up charting in the UK, didn't it, like you say? And I think that there was a bit of a video for it and stuff. So
yes, yeah, there we go. So that's it. That's your TV and film for September 1988. Loads there, loads of new TV shows, but pick has got to be Defenders of the Earth.
Yeah,
really,
Defenders of the Earth.
Master of magic. It's almost Pavlovian. As soon as anybody says that, I just go straight into the Mandrake bit. Just I can't help myself. But there you go. Right, there you go. That's that lot. So we will be back in a bit. We're going to take a quick break. We've got 4 more games still to get through, some crapverts, and what's coming up over the next few episodes with next month's stuff. So please stick around, and we'll be back in a bit.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David Hearn is out now. Crash landing on a green planet full of vector graphics, can Sarah find a way to escape for real? Or is she stranded on a planet full of sun, sea, and chippy tea forever? Imagine finding yourself in a cinematic karate game, having to rescue a princess, or remain stuck under the run-stop key forever. What about finding yourself on a space freighter full of robots? Could you clear the decks? If you were transported back to a Wild West town, having to round up outlaws, could you survive until sunset? What if you were a wizard with a cat who must colour worlds? Could you beat the game, or would a virtual guitar solo announce your demise? Sarah might just be another visitor, but she doesn't want to stay a while, never mind forever. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, discover if there's a way out in Escape from the Commodore 64. Visit davidhearnwriter.com to find out more.
And we are back. And Graham, when I said we had 4 games to cover this part, I lied.
I did. You lied.
I lied. We actually have 5.
Damn you.
I know, I lied. I was used to us being sort of eight per episode, but there's actually 9 this one. So we've got 8. We've still got 5 games. You got a bonus game. You weren't expecting that, were you? Unless you looked at the track listing. Then you may have been. But no, there's 5 games still to cover. So let's get into them quickly. Our first one is a budget game, £1.99. It's got 81%. This is Battleships.
Ooh.
This is a conversion of yet another evergreen and everlasting board game, Battleship. I could explain it, but I just took this from the wiki, because why not? Somebody else has written it. The game of Battleship is thought to have its origins in the French game L'Attaque, played during World War One. Although parallels have also been drawn to E.I. Horseman's 1890 game, Basilinda, and the game is said to have been played by Russian officers before World War I. The first commercial version of the game was Salvo, published in 1931 in the United States by the Starex Company. Other versions of the game were printed in the 30s and 40s, including the Strathmore Company's Combat, the battleship game, Milton Bradley's Broadsides, a game of naval strategy, and Morris L. Friedman's Warfare Naval Combat. Strategy Games Company produced a version called Wings, which pictured planes flying over the Los Angeles Coliseum. All of these early editions of the game consisted of pre-printed pads of paper. So the game of Battleships is usually played on 4 grids, 2 for each player. The grids are typically square, usually 10 by 10, and the individual squares in the grid are identified by a letter and a number. On one grid, the player arranges ships and records the shots by the opponent. On the other grid, the player records their own shot. Before play begins, each player secretly arranges their ships on their primary grid. This is if you don't know how to play battleships. I'm sure you do, but anyway, if you don't, each ship occupies a number of consecutive squares on the grid, arranged either horizontally or vertically, not diagonally. The number of squares for each ship is determined by the type of ship. The ships cannot overlap, i.e. only one ship can occupy any given square on the grid. The types and number of ships allowed are the same for each player, and these may vary depending on the rules. The ships should be hidden from player sight, and it's not allowed to see each other's pieces. The game is a discovery game, which players need to discover their opponent's ship positions by calling out E4, miss, damn it, H10, hit, hey, and so on and so forth. Until you've destroyed a lot of them, you've sank my battleship. So that is Battleships, and we have what we have here is a rather spruced up port of it here. Originally, so it took a little bit of time to actually trace the origins of this game, because there were full price adverts for this, and there are full price adverts for this out there with full page ads and full all its own advert and everything like that. But I don't think it ever actually was released on full price. So it's from Elite originally, and I think the first version of this that was released was on a hit pack collection, which was the Best of Elite 2, along with Paperboy, Ghosts and Goblins, and Bomb Jack 2. So kind of like we saw with that one the other week. So it was the Bouncing Balls one, Hopping Mad, and it was something else before that, wasn't it? I think it's one of those again. I hunted high and low all over the place to see if I could find a release for it. And the only thing I could find was that hit pack Best of Elite 2. It's on that cover. I think it might have been there. So this is the first standalone version of it, and this is a budget re-release on Elite's budget label, Encore. You know, Encore was the Elite's budget label. There you go. This was coded by Chris Butler.
Interesting.
I know. Mr. Chris Butler, and there's music by Mark Cooksey. So this is the Ghosts and Goblins pairing.
It is.
Which is kind of weird. It was then taken to the US and released by Epix, of all people.
Mad.
In full price by the looks of it, with a big old box and instructions and everything like Epix would do. So yeah, it's all the E's: Elite, Encore, and Epix. So yeah, that's about what I could find. If I'm wrong, I apologise, but that's what I could find. It seems that is the sort of lineage of this game. Origin side, like I said, it's a $1.99 release, got 81%. But it's 81% for Battleships. It's quite high. So why is it so high? So when the game loads, you get a nice loading screen, and then you get a simple title screen with the option for 1 player against the computer, 2 players, so against each other, or multiplayer, where the winner stays on, and you get the option to turn salvo fire off or on. I don't know if you're going to get much in the way of winner stays on Battleships.
Don't think you are.
That's a niche group of friends.
Could be there a while as well.
Yeah, exactly. Have you guys finished yet? No. Hunting for his 2 ship. His
You've
2
been here 3
one.
weeks.
So selecting the game, if you select which one you want, it takes you to the placing of the ship's screen. I didn't know what else to call it. That sounds really awkward, the placing of the ship's screen. I don't know what to call it otherwise. So here you can place your 5 ships. So in Battleships, the original game, all the ships are like a line. So they're a simple line. So they just go up 5 or 4 or 3 or 2 or whatever. So I think you've got 5 or 4, 2 3s and a 2, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
this makes things slightly different. So we get some slightly changed up sort of shapes of ships. So the first one you've got is your aircraft cruiser, and this takes up 6 spaces in this sort of off-kilter 3x2 grid. So it's like up 3 and then slightly, so it's then across and up 1 and then the other bit. So it's shaped like an aircraft cruiser. You know how they kind of have that weird shape.
Yeah.
So imagine that, and that's how it's sort of shaped. So then it's not a square, it's not a rectangle, but it's 3 and then slide the other side up 1 grid and then put the other 3 there. So it's 1 higher and 1 lower on each side. So there's that one. You've got your battleship, that takes up 5 squares in a row. You've got your submarine. This takes up 4 squares, but it's actually 3 long, and it's got like a raised square in the middle. So it's like your Tetris shape, the middle one where you've got that shape. So it's 3 across and then 1 in the middle up. So there's that. Then you've got your destroyer, which is 3 in a row. And finally, your torpedo boat, which is just 2 squares. So interestingly, you can rotate them as you see fit. You can place them diagonally, so that's kind of handy. You can't put them next to each other, which you can do in the original game, but you've got to leave at least a square's gap between each one, so they can't sort of, none of the parts of the boats can be touching each other, so you've got to leave a gap in between them. Also of note here is that the grid is 20 by 20, so there's plenty of space to put them in, so you've got a lot of room. 10 by 10 is usually enough, but 20 by 20, suddenly that's a lot. That's what, 400 squares. That's a lot of squares. So once you've done that, and player 2 has done the same if playing 2 players, you start your shooting. If you've got salvo turned off, you fire 1 shot at a time. If, however, you have salvo turned on, and I would advise you to do this, it's more interesting, you fire up to 4 shots per ship you have left. So at the start, you get to fire off 20 shots into the sea, just pepper the board, and that's kind of good. You've got 400. So this kind of makes sense with the 400 grid space by able to firing off loads of shots. If you're doing 1 by 1, then you are going to be here for 3 weeks. Anyway, once you've fired all the shots, whether 1 or 20 or however many left in either mode, it switches to this graphic representation of like the end of your ship sort of firing, boom, boom, in sort of 3D, kind of like a beachhead view, sort of trying to sort of shoot, and then you get this kind of action sort of thing of planes coming straight for you. They never hit you. There's nothing going on, but these planes go past. There's this bit of music, sort of Matt Cooksey sort of tension music, dun 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 dun, sort of playing as well, and you're firing away. So it goes through basically all the shots you fired, one after the other. So you just keep boom, boom, boom. You just keep shooting. Should you miss, should that shot have missed, then the bullet is met with a huge splash on the horizon. But if one of your shots should hit, then there's a big explosion that greets you, and boom, that's it. You've hit one of them. So it's like, yeah, I've hit one. So that's cool. So once all your shots have been done, you then get to see your grid and where you've hit. So you can see, right, there's one there, wherever, sort of thing, or what all you missed, and that's that. It then switches to player 2, and on you go. So then player 2 does their shots, it's 20, and then it switches to the same viewpoint, although it's flipped. So on player 2, the view of the battleship firing is on the right-hand side of the screen, and the ships that you're hitting are on the left. And so if you do hit one, there's the graphic representations of each of the ships on the opposite side of the screen. So if you hit one, it tells you which one you've hit, and it sinks slightly. And so you've got to hit them like as many squares as they have. It's slightly goes down for its graphic representation. So you know immediately which one you've hit. So yeah, it's repeated. You take it in turns until one player is completely wiped out and the remaining player is declared the victor, and any ships that they have left do a little sail off across the screen. You get a victory sort of sail off, and you win, and you repeat, and off you go, and that's it really. So there is a lot to like here. The presentation is really smooth throughout. Quick and simple to use joystick controls. You just flick between the ships what you want. You flick down to the bottom to switch to rotate, and then you can turn and left, right, and go back to which one you want. It's very slick. It's very easy. It's not a pointer. You don't have to drag up and down. You don't move anything. The grid spacing, you just move grid by grid. You press fire. That's it. You take a thing. You could delete a shot if you don't want to fire there by pressing fire on it again. That's a nice touch. All that's very good. The computer fires fast. So you're not waiting for the computer to take ages to fire. If it's doing 20 shots, it's around the board like boop, 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 boop. And it's fallible as well. It doesn't know where you are. It shoots wherever. It's just randomly sort of picking squares. And there's a really good title screen piece of music that starts off with a load of sound effects, and then goes into a really, really good piece of music from Mark Cooksey. It's one of his best he's done, I think. It's a really nice piece of music. I really liked it. The visuals are simple enough, but they're not. They're simple and they're not. They work really well because the sort of 3D effects of the plane strafing the battleship is nice. The explosions are good. The graphic representations of the boats are all nice. And the inclusion of the salvo mode is a great touch to speed things along. As conversions of board games go, this keeps the core loop and then adds some little bits on top to keep it interesting for a video game. It has these little sort of interstitials and these animations and stuff going on. There's only 2 screens to look at. There's the grid and then the animated sort of flyby bit. But the pace is fast. And like I said, the computer is not infallible, except when it finds one of your ships, and then it's brutal. It's just all around. You're like, oh, okay. And it's good to see that because it's exactly what a player would do. You just surround it until you've got it. And then when it knows which direction you're going on, it gets you. You're like, okay. So it's some nice AI in here that I thought, well, works quite well. And obviously in 2-player, you don't have to worry about that. But the computer AI is pretty good. I won a couple of matches. I lost one. And it felt fair. So it was all right by me. Touch is like only having to worry about looking away at the start of the game when playing with someone else. Because once you've picked your ships and you place them, the game never shows where they are. You never have to sort of see the screen where you placed your ships again. You kind of have to remember, so it's up to you. But what that does is you don't have to say to your mate, oh, look away, I've got my screen coming up. There's no cheating once involved once you've placed them. That's nice as well, so I quite like that. At the end of the day, it's battleships. But, as conversions go, I think this is a pretty cracking version of it, really. If you like battleships, I think you're going to like this. We've said that sometimes, why would you buy this over the thing? I think this is a pretty decent alternative, especially for £2 to the board game itself. If you've not got that amount of money, if you want to play it, the single player AI is decent. If you like battleships, you'll probably get a lot of enjoyment out of this. For £2, you could do a lot worse. And like I said, if you can't afford to buy the board game, it's a very viable alternative. I just wonder why it never got its full price release. Maybe they just looked at it and went, you know what? Maybe we can't do this, and we just chucked it on the sort of elite, a best of elite thing, which is weird considering it never came out. So how can it be the best of? Who knows? These questions I don't know the answers to. But I enjoyed playing this. Thought it was fun. Battleships, but a good version of it. It's fast, it's pacey, and it's graphically quite nice. What about you?
Yeah, it was good. I liked it. Nice and easy to play. Straight in. I remembered it being good from before. It was one of those ones that I remembered playing. As soon as it appeared and I heard the music, I'm like, I remember it now. And that nice little bit when it's odd, isn't it? Considering that's a grid and you put all your things on it, you can miss 20 times and think, where are those things? I'm pretty sure I covered that entire grid. It's amazing where they can hide in there. I hammered the computer on my first go at this. Just literally defeated his entire fleet and I had one hit on one ship.
Oh, wow. I won by just my submarine. I think I had one hit. It found it, but I got his just the last one.
I mean, I like the way that as you lose as they lose ships, they lose the amount of shots, which is quite nice as well.
That's one thing I forgot to mention. Yeah.
So that's quite nice. So obviously you've got less things shooting. So it was good. I enjoyed it. It's not a great deal to it. Graphics are good. Sounds really good. Really plays the way you'd expect it to. It's just easy in. I mean, if you didn't bought the board game or you've not got a piece of paper and a pen, for £2, you can't go wrong with this. This is and Battleships is a really fun game to play. It's a bit of a lost game. Lots of other games get the press. Your Monopolies, your Variant Paydays, and all these other games that Battleships is a great game to play because it's so easy to set up, as this would have been, and then you can play multiplayers, and it's really fun to say, oh no. And I remember having the more elaborate MB games version where you sort of press the button and it went.
The computer one. Yeah.
It was quite good. So it was. It's a good game. It's really good. Again, like you say, Matt Cook's music really adds a lot to that. There's a lot more production gone into that than you'd think for a game of Battleships, but it's really good and it pays off. I really enjoyed my time with it. I went through a fairly heavy series of battles on that as well. It was just good. Having the background and a laugh.
Just as an aside to the sort of enduring thing of this, I used to include Battleships in a lecture I used to do in sort of one of the ones when I used to do game design. So for one of the sessions for the last half, I would split the class into two, and I'd made it on Excel. So I'd made these versions of Battleships on 3 sheets of Excel, which they were in a group, and I put different rules in. So in the first one, it was 1 against 1. Then it was 1 with all the group being able to advise. And it was the entire group against the entire group on bigger grids. So when you first started playing, it was a bit slow. But by the time you got to the whole group playing against another whole group across the classroom, they weren't, looking at whoever sort of thing, and they could fire different amounts of shots and stuff. They were loving it. Students were just loving it. They're having a really good game of it because they were like, oh, this is really good fun. And it was a classic game design, doesn't age, but adding different bits and showing them how to do stuff was kind of part of it. But Battleships is such a simple concept, so easy to set up, but so enduringly fun to sort of play because it's that, like I said, it's that discovery game, and those are always fun to play, and it's just an enduring classic, and they did a really good job of it here. Chris Butler,
I can tell you really like it.
I do really like Battleships.
And also, just remember that you wouldn't have Warhammer if it wasn't for Battleships.
Would you not?
No, because Warhammer, the principal game of desktop Warhammer, is a game based on distances of objects and things placed in certain places.
I suppose it's all grid-based,
on a grid, and Battleships kind of started all that off, really.
Yeah.
Positioning your ships and moving. Well, if you could move them, that's the one thing that Battleships would be. That's the extra dimension to Battleships, isn't it? Where you can move your ships and sail them a little bit.
True, but I suppose it would completely ruin it because you wouldn't know where you'd fired at and if they'd moved into a place.
Yeah, it would be if obviously a variation of this later down the line. I mean, naval battle games is what I'm saying.
Naval battle games. It's like those games like you get now, like World of Ships and World of Tanks and all those kind of things come from.
Yeah, totally.
From this, don't they?
And I can tell you, having played this with a man of the Navy many, many times, it's quite nerve-wracking. Playing it against an ordinary person is one thing. Playing it against a naval officer very different kettle of fish. When they look you in the eye and say, "You've sunk my battleship," you kind of feel a little bit guilty.
I can imagine
So
you would.
I'm just telling you that's the case.
There you go. Cool. Battleships. Good fun. And a good conversion there. So we like that. Decent for £2. Let's move along. We've got another budget game coming up. Graham, as if we didn't get enough in the first one, tell us all about Kane II.
It won't take long.
Go listen to the review for Kane.
Yeah, I was going to say, just go back to episode 21.
How long ago it was?
Yeah, March 1986. Go listen to episode 21. Listen to what we said about Kane, because it's principally the same thing, really. This is published by Microsoft, $1.99. Got 33% in Zap.
This Microsoft?
Not surprising, really.
Wow.
Did I say Microsoft? I meant
You
Mastertronic.
I
don't know why I said Microsoft.
I don't know either.
One of those brain wrongs that happens. It's not Microsoft, it's Mastertronic. It'd be hilarious if it was Microsoft, but it's not.
It is Mastertronic.
The design was by John Darnell, as was the code, as was the graphics, as well as Jay McGuigan. That's Barry McGuigan's nephew, and musician is John Darnell.
Better be nice about this then.
Exactly, it's not really. I made that up. But John Darnell did Dragon's Lair 2 and Star Paws. Yes, something went wrong. Something went wrong. Honestly, this. Right, I've got this from the Moby games because I couldn't find the box and I couldn't be bothered anyway, because it's basically, in the first game, it was the Black Hole Gang, and there was a whole massive long backstory in the first one. It's enormous. Not so much this one, it's just the gang's back. Marshall McGraw is who you play, and they almost caused a war, didn't they, in the last game, and he managed to pack them off to jail, but they're now back, they've got released, and they're now kidnapping the daughter of the Indian chief in an attempt to start another war. And guess what? You've got to do principally exactly what you did last time. Slight variation.
Not much.
So in Kane II, it's up to McGraw to once again save the town of Kane over the course of 4 stages. In the first, McGraw rides his horse alongside a train to shoot at the bad guys. Then he has a shootout with the Black Hole Gang at the Fort Apache to rescue the Indian princess. Once he's done this, he tames his new Bronco to be his new companion in a really weird game level. And then he finally escaped the clutches of the Black Hole Gang by riding off and riding away from them and escaping. So at least some of these levels will feel very similar. At least some of them will. I mean, the game plays out, as I said, at those 4 levels. It feels so similar to the first Kane game that we reviewed, like I said, back in episode 21. It's almost, you may as well just go back to that and listen. The variation of the games has altered a bit. And I'd say, when I say altered, it's kind of more rotated. But the mainstays of the game, the 4 Western-themed mini-games, essentially. Ride Along the Train, that was part 2 in the first game, because the first game in the first Kane was different, wasn't it? It was... because you didn't ride along in the first. The second level was the ride along. What was the first level of the Kane?
Once shooting the ducks, was it?
It might have been. Then there's the shootout with the fort, which is essentially the same as the other level, but they've just added the words Fort Apache on it, which is written really badly as well. It's like, oh, for God's sake, you don't put the effort in here.
The Bronx.
And then you've got the Bucking Bronco level, and then you've got the escape. Now, the trouble is with this, that most of these things, it's the same horrible controls, and they feel less controlling as well here. Everything feels a little bit out of control, in fact. It's the same sprites, a little bit, maybe they've upped a little bit, but it's the same Mission Impossible guy, I think, just on a Mission Impossible horse, running along. The other train game that we played, what was the one with the other budget game we played?
Train Robbers.
Train Robbers did this better.
Yes, it did.
This running on the side of the thing way better than this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's principally that idea, running alongside the train, shooting at things, and then avoiding the things you got to jump over with the horse. For some reason, I find this incredibly difficult and annoying, but I don't think it's very responsive. And it's got that horrible sampled sound again, but not good samples. It's just
the duck shooting the duck.
It's just awful sounds. It's just, the problem here is that it's not much fun. The first game sort of got away with it because it was out in 1986, and you get away with some of that in 1986. But this is 1988, and you haven't advanced anything here. In fact, if anything, it's just more brown.
It is very brown.
I mean, the sprites themselves aren't bad, but it's essentially the same as Kane, and they're animated in principally the same way as they were in Kane. And even though this is £2, it offers nothing much in advance, and in fact, it feels like it's shonky bits of the game that sort of never was. So it almost feels like these are bits that never made it to the first game. They just found them on a disc and thought, oh, let's just scrap these things together and strap it into something.
Mm-hmm.
The train section was done better in the other games. It all flows better in those other ones as well. The shootout parts are really stupid and endless. The levels are endless. Well, that was what we said about Kane. It's gone forever.
Yeah,
I didn't like the first game that much. I made it quite clear back in episode 21 how I felt about that. I am not happy with this one either. It's a crap rehash of the first game with nothing new to offer. It is cheaper, I'll give it that. But what's the point in playing this? If you've got Kane, you wouldn't want to play it anyway. And if you've got this, well, it's just playing the same thing in a different order. Utterly, it's just, I suppose it's £2. So you've wasted £2 on this. Maybe that's the only merciful thing is that you haven't wasted any more money on it, just wasted £2. But you're not going to get a lot of fun out of it. I certainly didn't. I thought it was crap. And them samples still haunting me. I'm sick of the games throwing random blurty samples at me this week. At least 3 games here have had offensive. I mean, in Slimey's minds, I'll let it get away with it because they're kind of funny, but they just get annoying over time. But European Five-A-Side emitted that digital shriek. And now you've got this thing squirking at you. And that's a word I've invented for this. It's a squirk.
Part squawk, part twerk.
Yeah, it squirks at you.
Something like coming out of his arse.
It's not nice. It's dog egg. It's just dog egg. Rubbish. What about you?
And Kane was okay, I thought. But I did a bit of affinity for Kane. It was because it was just a collection of mini games, but it felt quite different at that time.
Well, in 1986, it did. I said that's where it was placed.
And it had the funny sort of thing of like shooting ducks for the opening level, which was kind of weird. But considering this is just more of the same, and sometimes literally more of the same, it feels like a pointless release. Did anyone want more Kane by this point? At the end of 1988, was people, scrambling, like, you know what I really want?
No.
More Kane. No, we've had a much better train robbing game, Train Robbers, and we've had other stuff like that port of Express Raider as well. And if you remember
I forgot about that. That was good, yeah.
Yeah, that was good. So we've had that as well. So Kane 2 feels very dated now and rather pointless. No one wanted this, no one. And I liked Kane. Well, even I didn't want this. No one did. I was happy with Kane. Kane was its own little thing, 4 little games of like Impossible Mission Man, Back to the Future 3. That's what it was. So he's gone back in time and done his thing. But there's no one wanted this. But I was trying to. It took me a while to remember Express Raider. I knew we'd done one. It was like a full price port by people we couldn't pronounce their names of properly. I think it was some Turkish guys or Romanian guys.
That's right.
But that was quite good as well. But this was just pointless, wasn't it? Pointless. No one wanted it.
Yep.
No one.
Absolutely. I haven't said it because I figured you'd want to say it.
Kane poo.
Yes, of course.
Didn't even occur to me, but as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, Kane poo.
Has to be done.
Although your pictures you put in the agenda made me laugh. Two Harry Kane float balloons.
Apparently they made those.
For what reason?
Because they thought that fans would really like them and they were just instantly universally loathed.
They're horrible.
You can buy those. They were actual things you could buy, inflatable little mini
Harry Kanes.
Yeah. I thought that would appeal to you.
It's just his head is all don't work on a rounded top of a small humanoid balloon type shape.
No, it's weird. But apparently they were going to release the whole team as those, and then someone went, "No, for the love of God, no."
The Christ compels you.
Can you imagine just people waving them around? It's really weird.
Yeah, that's what would have been, wouldn't it, as well? But no one wants that. No, Kane 2, no one wants it. No one wanted it. Nobody. Don't believe them don't believe their lies if they say they did. It's on a little Polaroid. It's Leonard going round. Don't believe his lies. It's a picture of that Harry Kane doll. He's trying to find the Harry Kane doll in Memento.
I wonder whether just as a thought, where do you think the inflator is on that? Back or front? I wouldn't like to think. There's a reason why it says on his shirt, it says, yeah. I think you know where you have to inflate Absolutely. That. Yes. I don't want to know where the valve is.
No one does. Oh, Kane's valve. Don't believe his lies. Anyway, let's move on. We've got more budgetary stuff coming up. And next one, our middle of this part. This is Sword Slayer or Spartacus Sword Slayer. This was £2 it got. Who released this? So it's from Players. Did you think, the tune on this, just going to ask a question, did it sound to you like the simple part, the sort of verses of Vienna by Ultravox?
I hadn't noted that, but now you said it, yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, dun, dun. Yeah, it's got that kind of stark, dun, dun, harsh dun, dun, tonality, but yeah.
Just in that opening bit where it's sort of just doing those sort of simple notes, I was like, is this Vienna by Ultravox? It sounds very much like it.
Just such a strange game.
It's just really weird, this game. Anyway.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was.
Yeah, it wouldn't. I think it's been nicked. Anyway, this is from the tape inlay. Sword Slayer, the Roman epic, the story of Spartacus. Taken into slavery as a child, his parents slaughtered by the Romans, Spartacus was destined to become one of the, it says Biome, so there's spelling mistakes here, Mr. C out there, Biome, one of the most famous heroes of all time. He was trained to fight in the arena, spending many years perfecting his skills with the sword, shield, and spear. Time could not tame him, whatever that means. Spartacus never forgot the freedom of his past or the cruel ways of the Roman Empire. When his time came to be called to the arena, Spartacus knew this was his chance for revenge. He was to fight the champions of the arena in the presence of the evil Roman Emperor Crassus. If he could beat these experienced gladiators, he might be able to escape. Spartacus knew from the other slaves that his plan was filled with danger. He would have to flee through the streets of Capua and beyond, killing anyone or anything that stood in his path. This is your chance to play the part of Spartacus the Sword Slayer in this epic tale of death and honor. You may fight against the computer or practice your sword fighting skills against a friend. Seems a bit out of tone at the end there.
Yeah, just like Spartacus did.
Absolutely. So yes, you play as Spartacus in this budget one-on-one fighting game from Players. This was made by Ian Potts. Seemed to do everything for it, from coding to visuals to the Ultravox-inspired music. So when the game loads, you can play through the single-player game or opt for two-player practice. The single-player mode has ambitions for storytelling, and after some lengthy screen-filling preamble text and loading, lots of loading, you find yourself waiting to be entered into the arena, which is kind of weird because you just stood in the underground sort of chamber, aren't you, with a guy stood there.
Yeah.
It says, so your time has come, and blah, blah, then it loads in, there's this bit, and you go, this guy goes, ugh, and you kind of wander off, and he sort of follows
Really
you out
weird.
while looking at the screen going, ugh, and then wanders out. And there's more
Chewing
loading.
chomping at the bits.
Yeah,
as it were.
it's very odd. So after more loading, you get your first fight against the gladiator under the watchful eye of Crassus. So it's a one-on-one fighter. Think barbarian. That's probably the closest thing. You've got 3 attacks, which are down and fire for a crouched hit, right and fire for a stab, and up and fire for a high swinging attack. Although it seems in one point you can actually jab upwards as well. I'll come to that bit in a moment. I don't know if you could do. I could never pull that off in the main fighting thing, so I don't think it's actually a move in the main in the fighting.
I struggle to do that.
Yeah, so the only one I could do was the upswing. Anyway, the fighting is done in an arena, so you're sort of gladiatorial arena with Crassus watching in the background. Think barbarian. Just think barbarian, but in a sort of Roman arena type place.
Yeah.
But where they
Think Aldi barbarian, but think barbarian.
Barbarian, yeah. The gladiators are chunky, but the animation is okay. It's all right. The moves are okay. They're chunky and they're big, and so this is all right. The UI at the top has your health represented by 3 markers. I couldn't make out what they were. If you could, well, I don't know. I don't know what they were. Each hit taken makes a marker at first flash and then disappear after another hit. So you can take 6 hits. When you do get hit, you'll sort of you back off as you sort of part. So there'll be a blood splatter. You go blood splatter, and then you'll back away from each other, and then you'll go in again. Should you win, Crassus gets annoyed. We get some more text, you get a bit more story here, and sends Brutus in to finish you off, who looks suspiciously like the previous gladiator. If you kill him, then he sends his eagle in to have a go at you.
Everyone loves the Eagles.
Everyone loves the eagles, yeah. So that was as far as I got, actually. The eagle swoops down and invariably just kills you with 1 hit. You have to kind of time, you have to crouch and block upwards, and then as it's backing away, you have to swing upwards, but the timing on it, there's a delay in the timing, and it was
very difficult,
stupidly hard. And it just kills me with 1 hit, just grabs hold of my face and kills me, despite the fact that I've got a helmet on, which is kind of odd.
Very odd.
I did check out a YouTube video for the rest, because I tried several times, but kept getting to the bloody eagle. Well, because it's a multi-load, this is one of the good things. You just keep on the bit where you failed at, so you don't have to go back to the beginning all the time. So it just keeps you on that. So that's quite good. But I just kept dying at the eagle part, so I just got bored and went to check out the YouTube video of the rest. So the rest, if you kill the eagle, you then got to escape the arena. You have to fight another gladiator on the way out. You've got a different background at that point. So you've got kind of the entrance to the arena. Then you're on a chariot road onto freedom, or you got to sort of duck down. The rope on it's dead long, because if you watch this bit, you're in the middle of the screen, but obviously they couldn't animate a horse. So the ropes where you're holding in the chariot go all the way off the other side of the screen. So you've got the longest horse leash ever. It's kind of crazy. So what you have here is a budget Aldi Barbarian 2 style thing that is not all terrible. And so the attempt at tying all this around the narrative of your escape and your pursuit of freedom is decent enough and does lend some narrative impetus to the whole thing, which is a criticism we've had for a lot of these games. It's one of the things we said about Barbarian 2, that it didn't hang together because we didn't understand the narrative, and there's nothing to that.
True.
If you put a story into something like this, then it does give you a reason to want to play through it. And I think this should be praised for that. There's interstitial bits where it tells you about it. The locales change. There's a bit of scrolling. The different modes change out the thing. And by the end of it, you're out in the wilderness. It's a nighttime. The sun's setting and you're free. And so there is this sort of narrative sort of arc that you do go through if you do play through all this. So I think that's quite good sort of thing when we don't normally see that in sort of budget titles. Some of the visuals are okay. I think some of the backgrounds are quite nice in places. And the main characters, they're big. And like I said, they're fairly decently animated. They're not terrible. They're not brilliant. They're not barbarian good, but they're Aldi Barbarian, the 1/5 barbarian thing. It's £2. What are you going to expect? Where it falls down, though, is the combat itself, which is a bit dull and actually reminded me of the the combat in Barbarian 2, which was also very dull and lacked the number of moves.
Yeah.
So it felt very similar in that, but it's just a bit too slow and a bit too sludgy. But, hefting great swords about, okay, really, but it's just not quite responsive enough. So there's no impact or speed. I get it's hard to do in 8-bit form, but it's just could have been done with a bit, just needed a bit of speed to it. Budget Barbarian, and if you look through that lens for £2, this isn't too bad. We've played a lot worse fighters. I think loads worse fighters than this. And like I said, the narrative that this tries to tell does give it some added interest. It's ambitious for a budget game, I'll give it that. But I just hated that eagle bit. I have to say, just hated it. Still, you could do a lot worse if you had £2 and wanted some combat action. And it does have the 2-player mode, which when I tried it, seemed to be the single-player mode, but the other player was taking on the role of the different gladiators. So kind of sort of counter-op sort of thing, which is kind of interesting, but they obviously just didn't want you fighting, but you're taking on the other ones. So I don't know how far along it went. I don't know if in 2-player you get to control the eagle, because that would be kind of crazy, but I didn't hate this. 46% maybe. Probably I'd give it a bit higher, I think, because it's trying to do something by putting that narrative around it. It's okay for £2. It's not terrible, but it's £2 Barbarian when it comes down to it. What did you think?
Strange old thing, isn't it, this?
It is weird, yeah.
Some kind of fight game, I guess. I liked the way it was sort of presented in its own weird logic. Graphics are a mixed bag. In-game, you've got some okay backgrounds, quite large game sprites again, with permanently attached shadows, which made me laugh a lot. Quite limited animations, but what there is there appears to be okay. And there's attempt at blood and guts, isn't there? Because as you stab and murder, there's blood and things in it, which is unusual for a game like this, that you get injury in it. The fighting moves are a bit limited, aren't they? Low and mid stabby poke and then sort of slashing moves and stuff. But they do kind of work and it's in its own little £2 logic, it all kind of works. So it's just a kind of stand and whack, and you just keep whacking them. And there's some pleasure in it, I tell you, just keep whacking at those various different enemies. The eagle is a pain in the backside, as you rightly point out, though. Really could have done without that.
Yeah. And
then you get those weird in-between bits, the narrative bits, which gave me a really weird 8-bit Quentin Tarantino vibe, I think, because of the colour schemes and the way they present themselves. And that really loud music steps in as well in between, because the music in the background in the game is really, it's a 2-note arpeggio, a 2-note slow arpeggio. So it's dood, 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 dood. Whereas in the background music, and then as soon as you get to the level, it's like, God, my gosh, it's quite shrill. So it's sort of a game, but it sort of wakes you up a little bit at those parts. And obviously, it's loading bits in it. I don't know. It all feels choppy and a bit silly, and there's some daft names in there, isn't there? As Zap made a sort of comment about the fact that it's sort of quite a comedy game, not taking itself too seriously, and maybe that's true. But I thought that what this did, it did okay at. We've seen a lot worse fighting games and some really terrible ones. Think Street Fighter, for example. Full price, big license, and that was awful.
Something that sort of did try to do something similar was that Samurai Warrior one, where it had the big screens of pointless text and stuff.
Here we are, £2. I thought this was a little bit hard done to by Zap again, because I think this deserved a little bit more than 46%. I'm not saying it's perfect, but for £2, the 2-player game, by the way, when you do control those different players, the gore moves are different as well. So you can stab someone through their chin with the sort of triple pronged poker thing, which is quite violent. Yeah, it's pretty good. So this things to like in here. There's little things that you wouldn't expect in a game for £2 that are in there, but it is at the end of it all Aldi Lidl brand version of Barbarian, but it doesn't make some of the mistakes that Barbarian 2 did, and that was a lot more expensive, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think there's a good little game in there, albeit that it's rough around the edges, but I always played it for a while. It's what my best comment could say for this, it's not utterly shit, because it's not shit. What it is just £2 worth of what you'd expect. Just don't expect greatness, but you will probably have a good laugh with it at certain points. So go with that. All right, I'll go with that. Spartacus as well. Can't imagine that Kirk Douglas ever looked like that, because Spartacus is an amazing film. It's a Kubrick film, isn't it? So it's an amazing film, but
yeah, really
good stuff. I know I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was. I enjoyed it. Good laugh and funny and gory.
Yeah, good. It was all right. £2.
Go and try it again.
One of the best players ones we've played, I think, probably apart from that Poltergeist.
That isn't difficult, though, is it?
No, it's not.
It's one of the only working players games we've played.
That's true. Did you say players was the CRL budget range?
It was. Well, it was, and then they got bought out and then promptly collapsed.
Right, okay. Because this is better than most CRL's full price stuff.
Well, that wouldn't be difficult, would it? Again, when your benchmark's as low as that.
That is true. There you go. Spartacus, Sword Slayer. It's all right. Bit of fun. Bit of £2 fun. Let's move on to our next one. And our next one is over to you, Graham, and you can tell us all about what it's like to play a professional snooker simulator.
Well, I would tell you that.
If this was one.
If this was anything like one. This, I'll grant you, has the word snooker in it. Everything else, I fear, may be something of an addition that does not need to be there. This is from Codemasters, which really surprised me with this. I think this is the worst Codemasters game I've ever seen out of all of the ones we've seen, and we've seen a few. Mm-hmm. This was developed by Arcana Software, or at least coded by. The graphics are Stephen Day, music Dave Whitaker, and then the game design is down to Godwin Graham, David Darling, I think, or at least Godwin Graham, or Graham Godwin. I don't know whether
Don't take credit for designing snooker. Whoever said, this is designed by us. No, it's snooker.
Yeah. Do you mean, I could go into what snooker is, all right? Snooker is, I think we've described it before. I'm not going to go into what snooker is. Everyone knows what snooker is. If you're unsure, just Google snooker. It'll tell you in seconds. It's a game of challenging physics and hitting balls into pockets and all sorts of fancy stuff. So that's what this is meant to be. This is not that. This is a horrible keyboard-driven version of snooker that lacks anything to make it either interesting or fun or good. I mean, there are ways to make a snooker game, I'm sure, but not like this. Not this way. Stop doing it this way. Don't ever do it this way. I understand the struggle with it. I sort of get it, but I don't quite understand why they can't get it right. I mean, once again, here we've got a snooker table viewed left to right and from about 20 feet above. Mm-hmm. So literally orthographic top down. Once again, the balls are essentially character blobs that shuffle and fidget more than roll. The table is the right colour, and the balls are in the right place, and the balls are of the right colour. At least they got that part right. But why would you not use the joystick to choose where you aim the ball?
Graham,
why?
That's too obvious.
Why?
Too obvious.
Why have different keys as a shoot button for each player? Why? It says in the instructions, the players use separate keys to shoot so that the computer can tell which player is about to play. What are you on about? It's a turn-based game. What difference would it make? It's just, what? It's fucking turn-based. Why does the cue have to have an annoying rotate around the ball? Why does it do that? Why can it only rotate one direction fast? So you can rotate round the ball fast one directionally by pressing the Q key, but you can only go counterclockwise or clockwise really slowly by pressing the W and E keys, none of which, by the way, are told in the instructions. None of it. You have to guess those.
You do.
Figure that out. The most useful thing that you need to play the game, it doesn't tell you how to. It tells you everything but that.
You know, you could put spin on it as well, by the way. Did you find the spin keys?
No, I didn't. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, they're I, J, K, and M to move the spin on up, down, left, and right. I
mean, I inadvertently put myself in practice mode by pressing P, Shift P, and then couldn't get out of it for ages. And I thought I was playing a game, getting really good at it. And then when I finally pressed G, it just reset the entire thing. I'm like, oh, what? Why are we rotating around things in this game? I get the idea of the view at the top, because the view is snooker table in the middle, scrolly message that gives you very little information above that, and other basic information that you might need, such as score and that sort of stuff. And then in between the top, right at the top, then when you go to your rotatey ball view, where you've got your cue rotating around the cue ball, you get like a view of the ball that you can see, but it's of no use to you. Because half the time, trying to align the ball you're aiming at from the top-down view to the view that you're looking at from there doesn't line up. It doesn't make any sense. So aiming on this game is actually completely impossible. In fact, arbitrary, I would say. Now, you can hit towards a ball, I'll grant you, but chances are you're never going to be able to. The nuances of the control required in snooker to just clip the ball at the right edge with the right amount of power to drop it into the pocket, none of that is possible in this game. None of it. It's impossible. So while I get the idea of that view, it's of no use whatsoever or bloody help whatsoever. It's pointless. How do you control the power in this game? You hold the power button down for less power, and you tap the button for more power. It doesn't make any sense to do it that way.
It doesn't make sense.
Why would you do that? How is a light tap of something more powerful than an elongated?
Because as well, the animation pulls back from the cue ball, doesn't it? It pulls back, so you think, oh, that's going to be a big whack. Whereas you tap it, it's like, brah, it's like Bruce Lee's one finger death punch.
It makes no sense. More importantly, I suppose, I mean, all of those things, and all those things are in this game. Why is there no power indicator?
No, none.
Even though you've got no idea how much power you're applying anyway, in a game that's absolutely about the control of the power. That's the one thing that you needed to put in. The key things for this game that it needs, either your ability to aim, okay, you've got a very basic version of that. Your ability to control the speed of which you hit to the white ball and the power that you give, where you can't really control the power. You either whack it or you don't. There's no middle ground, and there's no way of knowing what that even looks like and how to determine it. It's just stupid. Snooker is not a game where you smack the balls as hard as possible or don't. No, that's not. When you learn to play snooker as a professional, they go, how do you play the nuances of this game? Hit it hard or don't. Simple as. All right, that's the rules around here. All right, do I have to hit certain balls in certain order? Well, you can, but there's no point in this variation of it because you're never going to hit the ball you're aiming for anyway. Then you have to. Did you notice, by the way, when you do pot a red, which, by the way, I did by complete accident, because when you play the game and you break the reds up, the physics goes wild. It's like some completely different version of a Newtonian universe where it's just completely mad. So the physics is in a whole unique world of its own. The balls ping off all over the place. Some of them go radically fast for no reason.
Yeah,
I hit the ball with low power, and my white ball was ricocheting off the edges of the snooker table like they were like it was on a pinball table. It's like, why is it accelerating? What's in those cushions? It's just, and then the sound effects. I mean, come on, it's not hard to make a click sound akin to a ball clicking another ball. Instead, you've got this kind of boink bonk sound. Boink, 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 boink. I'm like, what are you doing? Where have you been where you saw snooker like this? Where this designer of this game, this Graham Godwin, what version of snooker have you played on? What planet were you on? Because you weren't on Earth. This is not Earth-based snooker. It can't be. So they don't tell you how to control. Don't tell you any of the controls. The controls that are there are really weird. You can't aim properly. You can't control the power. The physics of the game is completely crazy. It makes no sense. I just don't get it. I don't get why they've made this so hard for the player. Everything about this. If you said to someone, I want you to make a snooker game and make it as impossibly non-intuitive as you can make it. So does the computer come with a controlling stick? Yeah, it comes with a joystick. Don't use that. Use a keyboard. Okay. Don't tell anyone what those keys are and add keys that would have no use. What about power? Well, make that completely arbitrary anyway, but, reverse the normal power ratio. Don't put an indication of it on the screen. And have two different power buttons for two players. Why? It doesn't matter. It's turn-based. I know it's turn-based, but let's just fuck about with it. So, and then on top of all that, you try and, what's the atmosphere? Because snooker's a game of intense atmosphere. That's the whole point. And I suppose that's the one thing they do pull off, because it's completely silent apart from the weird bonk sounds from the balls. So there's no feedback. If you pull off a really great shot in this, not that you could, but you might get one by chance. Nothing. Even the scrolly message won't come across and go, congratulations, that was a good shot. It's like, no. Nothing. What are you going to go for now? It's like playing this with an automaton. When you pull off a really good shot, it bounces off 4 cushions, ricochets, 3 balls go in, and it's just, are you going for the pink? Just acknowledge the fact that was a good shot, you moron. Just give me some feedback. Give me something. Give me anything. You get nothing from that scroll text or nothing in this game. Now, I know that purists may well say that snooker is a quiet game. And maybe that's true. But this lacks anything about snooker. There is nothing about snooker in this game other than it's snooker-shaped. I'll give it that. It looks like a snooker game. But this is very far off from anything. And it really surprises me because this is the worst Codemasters thing I've seen. This cannot have passed the Darling's threshold of quality. They've released some amazing budget games. This is awful. Give a game at least like this needs a way to aim properly, a way to control the power. It needs physics. It needs those things or it's not snooker. This is not snooker. This is a crappy piece of shit. I know it's cheap, but that's no excuse. It's just dreadful. This can snook off. It's rubbish.
Snooker.
You'd be snookered with this. What about you? Did you get anything from this?
No, just before we get into what I think of it, I've got a couple of things that I just want to mention. From I found some different interior, so, inside rules things. Still doesn't tell you anything to do, but I just want to tell you what it says playing tips. It says demo mode. The demo game is a very intriguing contest between 2 top-class players, and at the same time, it serves to exhibit the program's fine qualities. What did it? Does it? No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. I also want to. I've put the cover in the agenda, so I want you to go to the agenda and have a look at the cover. We need to talk about the cover. There's lots of things wrong with this cover.
Oh dear, that's clearly meant to be Alex Hurricane Higgins.
Well, I think it's Alex Hurricane Higgins playing Dickie Davis, but there's many things wrong with this. So Dickie Davis looks like he's got his own banquet buffet going on at the back. All that stuff on the table.
Yeah, he's got a bargain bucket KFC there, ain't he? A bottle of wine.
And a massive bottle of Cointreau by the looks of it. Since when have you ever seen a snooker game where all the reds have ended up in the top right corner of the board of the table?
No, that wouldn't happen, would it? And why is he being watched by the village people in the background?
Yeah, look, the crowd are the weirdest crowd you're ever going to see. Plus, also, just above the S and a N, Michael Myers is peering in.
He is, yeah, totally.
Also,
God, that's weird.
The perspective on that trophy is all off. And finally, that cue that he's actually playing with, knowing how far the table, the D, the sort of top thing is the shortest cue ever known to man.
It absolutely is. Yeah, they've clearly taken a screen grab of TV snooker and it's gone wrong. I mean, you've got in that background, you've got the village people. Frankie Goes to Hollywood are in there, potentially U2 and Depeche Mode as well. It's
Michael Myers, Dickie Davis in a red shirt.
Is there a guy with a mask next to him at the back there? Is that my imagination?
He's got a hard hat on. Him in the middle, just above his. Who's lets a guy in? And someone with sunglasses. Who watches snooker with sunglasses on?
I don't know. I don't want to know. I'm pretty sure there's too many reds on that table. I'm not going to count them, but I'm pretty sure there is.
But there's all the reds. All the reds have ended up in the top right corner. I don't know how that would ever happen.
Because they're not professional
but it's
snooker
World
players.
Snooker, it says it on the sign behind them.
I'm not so sure about that.
Why is snooker done with a blue and a red ball as well? Why not a white and red? Which are probably the two main balls you would associate with. Or black and white.
Blue? Oh,
why
black
blue?
And, yeah. Why the blue?
No one gives a shit about the blue ball.
No, it's worth 5 points.
Yeah, it's not even like pink or black.
It's not even the main pointer.
Oh, it's just dreadful. When I did start playing this, my first shot, I hit it up the table because I thought the line was where I was aiming.
I did the same thing.
I was like, moved it round, sort of aiming, that's nice. Went to play it, it just went up the table. Luckily, it bounced straight back down again and did a break. But I was like, oh, that's the cue. Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Jesus, what control system is this? Why is it not right and left of the joystick? Wow, this is horrible to play, look at, listen to. Everything is wrong here. Why can't they get snooker right? Why? I could handle the naff physics and balls all over the place if the control system wasn't so stupid. Why is it Shift A to make the player play again? Why Shift and A?
Or R for replay, which annoys the hell out of you because you keep clipping that and go, no.
Yeah, what is this? I guess this was ported from a system with no inbuilt joystick support. Probably, I'm guessing. But even so, it's still got all those keys. You don't need the shift. You don't need shift in anything.
You don't need shift.
You've got an entire keyboard at your disposal if you decided to use that. There's 26 keys there and all the numbers. I know 7 of them are for to pick in your thingy, but you've got all the F keys, enter, all the symbol keys, anything. Just dreadful. Awful and horrible. Another crap snooker game. Zapped gave it 63%.
And did you read the review?
Yeah, I don't know how they arrived at that.
But they said it wasn't as good as the amazing Steve Davis snooker. I'm like, are you having a laugh?
Yeah,
You're mental.
Yeah. Which game did you play? Because we played that game 3 times. So they're all as bad as each other. It's got presentation 39%, graphics 30, sound 31, hookability 65, last ability 43, overall 63. Something's gone wrong.
Something done up there.
No, nothing's right here.
No.
There's no way that this is better than Fernandez Must Die.
No, it's not.
Or the one we just played, Sword Slayer.
No.
Or stuff like that. It's just this is dreadful. This is an awful snooker thing.
Crap.
Yeah, awful crap. That cover though is amazing.
Utter crap.
I love that crowd in that cover. It's just cut out people from the paper.
It is just crap. What a weird audience.
Here at the Crucible in Sheffield, we've got the village people in the front row. Frankie Goes to Hollywood just behind them. And who's that peering in through the window at the back? Why, it's Michael Myers. I'm whispering Ted Lowe, and I think there may be some murder tonight.
Oh, dear me.
As Dickie Davis steps up from his banquet at the back.
Actually, yeah, thinking about it, that player on the table there, he looks a bit like Jimmy Hill.
It does look like Jimmy Hill. It's Jimmy Hill versus Dickie Davis.
It is. It bloody well is, isn't it?
It's the snooker of the pundits.
It is.
It's it does. Oh man, that's amazing. Dickie Davis versus Jimmy. If they'd have made it
Pundit snooker.
Yeah, pundit snooker.
That sounds like a Bollywood star.
It does a bit. But if they'd have made this pundit snooker and made it crappier all over the place and stuff, I'd have got behind that. But they've called it Professional Snooker Simulator, and none of those words fit together. Oh dear. There we go. Professional Snooker Simulator. Bloody crap.
Puka.
Puka. Yeah. Let's move on. We've got one game left. Let's get into that. And this is 19, part 1. 19.
Vietnam, he was 19. Vietnam, he was 19.
Boot Camp.
19.
Boot Camp. The game is based on a song. Again, I'm getting Blade Runner vibes.
Yep.
About the average age of draftees for the Vietnam War. Strange thing to make the game on. I'm just going to I'll part that to one side for the time being. We'll maybe get into that a bit later. 19 Part 1 Boot Camp comes from Cascade, and there's a whole gang of credits behind it. Shame it's not a Butte or a real winner. It's got designed by John Lewis and Sean Conran, produced by Sean Conran. It's coded by Joe Booth and Mark Greenshield, and graphics by Joe Booth and Sam Mohabul, and music by Rob Hubbard.
It is.
Yeah. So this was actually the first of 2 planned games that were based on the song. I'll come to some stuff about the second one later. And sees you play as a raw recruit being taken through 4 different training exercises to get you ready for the horrors of the Vietnam War. Cheery. This is a combat school knockoff, basically, to all intents and purposes. When the game loads, you can choose to play with up to 4 players. You can enter your names, and then you get drafted with a draft number. And then you could choose to play any of the 4 training exercises. While all this is going on, there's a very sample-heavy Rob Hubbard tune beating away. I think it's a version of the main tune, and it's a version of the song. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's not one of my favourite Rob Hubbard tunes, but it's okay. The first one you can choose to do is Assault Course. I will say here that the game has done away with Waggle, so at least that's something. It's not like the crazy Waggle fest that Combat School was. What it has introduced, though, is the most bizarre way of clearing obstacles I have come across ever in a game. So you've got 5 minutes here to complete the obstacle course and then get to the next one. And so you hold left or right to run in that direction, which sounds easy enough. You just run along. Okay, I got to the first obstacle, which is a series of knee-high posts, and that was as far as I could get. I literally couldn't get further. To clear them, you've got a bar at the bottom of the screen, and it's got like this marker on. Holding down the fire moves this marker across the bar, and at some point it will turn red. And then you have to let go of the fire button at the right time and at the right location in front of the posts, and then when you'll jump over them. And that's one of the most awkward, tricky things I've ever had to do in a video game ever, because there's no indication of where the right point is, where the right point on the bar is, anything. I managed by some fluke to clear one of them, and then I found myself trapped between that one and the next one. So the one I cleared and the next one forever. I couldn't get out. So I was in some existential nightmarish dream, a nightmare of like being a draftee trapped between knee-high poles. I don't know what was going here, so it was awful. It was like I couldn't get out. I was just running to the right, and as soon as I got to poles, just stop. Run back to the left, run up to it again, stop. Try again. And this was it. It was rubbish. I couldn't do it. It's a stupid control system. Utterly unforgivable and stupid. Maybe it's just me, but I tried it for ages to clear the next one and just couldn't figure out what to do.
Nope,
Looking at the instructions was no help, so I just spent eternity waiting for the clock to run down and end my misery. I have no idea what lies beyond those posts. Stupid. Next up, you've got the firing range that you could do. So you stare down the sights of a gun, and in those sights, you see a magnified view of the field ahead. Within that field, targets pop up. So you can see the view, the field is off in the distance. You can see it full screen, but there's a magnified view of where you're sort of aiming in the sights, which are kind of in the bottom center of the screen. Targets pop up, marked as either O or V, and you've got to move your view over them. There's a crosshair in the middle of your view at the bottom in the magnified view. And they're either marked as either O for opposition, I guess, or V for Vietnamese, I guess. You don't want to shoot them. You've got to shoot the ones marked O and not the ones marked V. And you've got to shoot enough of them to move on to the next round, and that's it. You move the view in the sights left or right to find the targets, and that's it. So that's what this one is. So it's just essentially the target range practice. Third one up, it's a driving event that tests your ability to steer a Jeep down a hilly road. This is like any driving game with a 3D road in front of you and a series of objects coming at you to avoid. You've got to get to the end of the road and the time limit to pass. That's it. So you just keep going from there. The fourth event has you squaring off against your sergeant in a one-on-one fighting game, and you've got to survive for 30 seconds. But I think you've also got to do more damage to him than he does to you to get through. After each of these games, you're giving a rating on how you did for coordination, stamina, and morale. And after doing all these 4, they're saved. It just saved it for some reason and restarted. There was no... I could choose to do them in any order, then it just restarted and I had to put names in again. I'm not quite sure what happened. That's it, really. There's no connection between the events. There doesn't seem to be any real sense of progression either that I could see. And maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know. I couldn't see any. The visuals and sounds are pretty good, though. They're pretty good throughout. Like I said, there's a decent version of the tune from Hubbard. The sprites and the backgrounds are well drawn. The road effects are 3D effects and the like. They're all good. It's fast. It's smooth. Everything looks quite good. There's some nice visuals in this. This is a nice to look at game. The problem with it is that each event has a flaw that makes it unenjoyable. So you've got the stupid control system in the assault course. You got the fact that there is no reticle on the field in the shooting range, so you don't actually know where you're aiming because the view in your scope is just trees or anything, and it's not exactly what you're seeing up on the top. So it's only when you actually get across a target and you shoot it and one drops down that you can kind of get any kind of bearing of where you are, and it moves quite fast. Instead of put a reticule or a crosshair in the top of the screen or something to sort of let you know where it was you're aiming at, or your angle moved or changed, or the gun aimed and turned, that would have helped. As it is, I kept getting lost in where I was shooting. So that doesn't help either. The fact that you go over hills in the driving game is stupid because all it does is block your view of the track. The view doesn't rise up, so you can't see oncoming obstacles. You just get completely... You can't see anything. You just go up a hill, and it's a nice effect, don't get me wrong, but it blocks your view of any oncoming obstacles, which renders it unplayable. You're kind of trying to look underneath the car to see stuff. This is stupid. Move up or have it lower down. You don't need to do this. Who needed hills? No one asked for hills. And so there's that. And then there's no real impact to the moves in the fighting game. I was just running around doing stuff and it didn't really feel very good or any connection. So I didn't particularly enjoy that one very much. What all this leads to is a series of events that are just not fun to play. Before we get to the theming, should we say, around the actual game itself. So this song, as far as I'm aware, the song was not about glorifying war or what those 19-year-olds had to go through. And I don't really think making a combat school knockoff was a very good or tasteful idea. I don't think the story about this of preparing these 19-year-olds for the horrors of war for Vietnam, it is really what video games are kind of about or what I want to do, because there's no sense of you're just told to do really good in these small events and it'll be all okay. You'll be prepared for Vietnam. And I don't get that at all. I don't understand what this game was actually trying to say or do. And I think it's just a bad idea from the get-go. And it's one of those things. I'm not a huge fan of games based on real-life conflict, as in recent real-life conflict. I don't really play the Call of Duty World War II games. I don't play the Model of Honor games. No. I don't mind first-person shooters set in war, as long as they're kind of fictional and it's all nonsense-based, so Halos and things like that, science fiction ones, they're all fine. I just don't like the idea of, like, people could play this and they're like, well, I was there, or this is unpleasant. And I think there's something wrong with that. And I think trying to turn a song into a game is weird for one thing, but trying to do it for a song that was, this trying to sort of give this message of the fact that the average age of people of 19 is, and trying to inform people of what the horrors were about that was going on, don't think it's really good. I found this pretty distasteful. So yeah, I thought this was a step beyond. Even with games like a game of Platoon, okay, that was based on the film, so there was something, but I didn't really like it. But I think this is a step in beyond that. So no, I didn't like it very much. As the title suggests, though, this is part one. There was going to be a part two to this. Now, there's some evidence of this in the Xmas issue of Zapped 64 for 1987, the December issue. There was an advert for this game. Different box as well, because it's GIs in Vietnam. It's full on set in Vietnam, not this sort of boot camp image that we have for the thingy. And it was called. There was a bit of the text that says second part will be called 19 Part 2 Vietnam, which was two separate words, which is kind of weird. So it wasn't called that, but it seems to have changed then to Combat Zone by the time the game's released, because on the back of the box it says coming soon will be Part 2 Combat Zone, where you're in Vietnam. According to games that weren't. There were actually two separate games in development when Cascade went bust. It seems that one was going to be an action game, and the other had you playing as a hippie writing letters to Congress to stop the Vietnam War, and was to be on the other side of the tape. So supposedly none of the first game actually exists, but they might have found something of the second one, and they're looking into it at the moment. So it's worth reading. We'll post a link to the games that weren't page for this. Have a read through it. It's quite interesting. It doesn't sound like it was very good, because I don't think the people who actually made this or were making that first one got paid again. It's another one of those horror stories where people didn't get paid and stuff. So it's on games that weren't, so have a go look at that. However, Cascade went bust. They were bought by EA, I think, or something. They were called something else. The games never got released, and I think that in the long run, I think that was for the best. I really didn't enjoy this, if I'm perfectly honest, and I think it was all kinds of wrong to make a game at this. It's got 70%, and okay, that probably, times were different back then, but looking back on it now, I don't think this is a game that really should have been made, but it is what it is. What did you think?
Yes, I agree. It shouldn't have been made, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
Not the irony of it isn't lost on me, really, I suppose, because clearly they hadn't listened to the song, or if they did, they didn't quite get the message, which makes a game that's principally based on an anti-war song where you're actually learning to be a soldier for a war kind of beautifully ironic. It's a very great example of tragic irony, really. There's some nice graphics in this. Let's just take the game as what the game is. There are some nice graphics, a good rendition of 19 from Rob Hubbard. Quite amazing, really. Really good version of that. And a variation of Combat Skull, isn't there? With 4 seemingly interconnected but not really events. Each one's a load from the disc. It all takes a while. Title screens all use that kind of standard military font that we've seen used in Rambo before and Commando. All fairly simple stuff. The games all fall apart one way or another because either like in the first one, the assault course, the control is stupid and just totally doesn't work for you and makes you hate the game. The shooting one is interesting, I suppose, but falls apart because the way that your eyepiece moves but nothing else does is weird and disconcerting. And it's almost like you're moving the background, but your gun stays static. And in reality, that doesn't quite work for me.
No.
It would have been better if it was just a black circle and you were just targeting and moving a giant target around as opposed to a tiny view with a gun and a static screen. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. The Jeep training, that effect was interesting, but doesn't work for the exact reason you said, because it blocks your view. And also it looked like you were driving across the custard-based landscape because it was bright yellow.
It was bright yellow.
My joke there was that it wasn't the desert, it was the dessert you were in.
Oh, very good. Golf clap.
Golf clap for that, I think, yeah. And as you slide around, it's sort of, it wasn't very nice. The road bends, sort of, and then there was those weird bumps and, yeah, not good. And then the final thing was just the really, really boring fight.
Yep.
8 rounds of boring with, 2 moves? 3 maybe?
Yeah,
8 rounds of it.
Any.
Just kick, punch, kick, punch, kick, punch. Weird headbutt where he goes, sort of surges. I was like, wow, that was weird. And then when he won, he kind of flapped his chest. He was like, it's like, what's going on here? I don't know. And there's really weird UI choices of things I noticed through this as well. When you're at the Jeep section, the UI at the bottom's got some dog tags, but they're bright yellow. It's like, just make them grey.
Yep.
And later, you get a similar thing in the fight sequence where you've got some really weird colour choices. It just all feels just not very good. Animation's basic in that combat sequence. They looks like meat slabs.
Yeah.
It's just weird movements. It's all felt undermade. It's not a whole game, this. It doesn't feel coherent. It feels like you're doing all this for absolutely no reason or nothing. There's no coherency to it. So I'm not sure what they're trying to prove and what this has got to do with the 19 music at all, other than, even that when was that out? It was out years ago compared to this.
Yeah, this was a while, yeah.
So I don't really get what this is. I think it was either in development hell for a long time and then thought, we've got to release something. We've put adverts out, so this is what happened. Or are these levels that never made it into Platoon? I don't know. I genuinely don't know what this is all about, but I do know that it's literally nothing to do with the song No 19. Nothing. It's so far removed from what that song's about, it's actually offensive. And I think that this game is just a bit of an abhorrent mess. So it does not, again, this is no way 70%. No way is this 70%.
Nope.
At best, this is in the 30s or 40s because there's some interesting graphic-y bits and stuff in it, but no way is this 70%. No, absolutely no chance. That's a higher rating than Rambo.
Yeah.
At least Rambo's honest about what it is.
Yeah. It's weird. Your development hell might be a good actual point because, like I said, that advert appeared in December 1987, and now here we are. And it's taken usually games. You're advertising them near to release.
Yep.
So 8 months later, we're seeing it. 9 months later, in September as well. So I suppose August, I suppose. But yeah, it's not a very good game. It's not very good. And
it's a good soundtrack apart from when it ends in the game as well. Then it just goes silent for a bit, and that's unnerving.
Yeah.
And then it starts again, thankfully. But you're like, no, it's no way. A full price 70%. No way in hell. No thanks. No,
it's not. There we go. That's it. That's our last game at 19 Boot Camp. An interesting batch of games this week. 2 Harry Kanes. But we'll get back and see what we thought after those in a moment, because let's cheer ourselves up, Graham, with some crap verts.
I think we should.
Let's go and look at some crap verts. We haven't looked at them for a while, haven't had any. And we're going to stay in a wartime vein. This is GI Hero.
Look at that. Jeez.
This is a classic old school crap vert, I thought. This is GI Hero. It's been bloomed and smudged and everything. There's a gradient in the GI Hero text. which is over a gold embossed bar. There's some chevrons. There's an eagle. But in the middle, there's a Rambo-esque character.
Rambo-esque is right.
It's like from First Blood, I'd say, with a very, very severe widow's peak. It's so severe. It's so severe. It's going over his headband.
It looks like he's got some kind of ferret that's curled up and died on his head.
Yeah. And then below him, there's some very big leaves with a couple of men jumping through them. And then some papers at the bottom saying top secret. Actually, it doesn't. Does that say top secret?
I thought it's the top secret, yeah.
It does, doesn't it? They've got the S wrong.
This is top secret.
It's higher class than top secret.
It's utterly terrible, isn't it? Look at that. It's meant to be a Kalashnikov that he's holding there, but
I don't know what it is.
I don't think Kalashnikov rifles have bright orange grips on them. I'm pretty sure they don't. It wouldn't be great for camouflage, would it? Where you've got bright orange anything.
And then in the bottom left, we've got some text. A-B12387 touched down without a sound. Parachute hidden safely away, he surveyed Quadrant X with the steely gaze of a professional killer. The task was hard. Some would say impossible, but to a special operations agent, the impossible was merely a way of life. The brief had been simple: recover the vital NATO documents, and of course, those three familiar words on which A-8B or 12387 thrived: leave no survivors. God, he sounds like a right piece of work.
It's just blatantly ripping off Rambo, totally.
Yeah, very much so.
But I always like it when they've got, you need to steal the vital NATO documents. I always like it when Lisa. Mr. Wang, you're the head of all Japan. I guess there's something always, you always get the information somehow.
Did you hear what we're saying about the documents?
I don't know what the documents are, but I do know that the documents are very important and probably vital. And for those that don't know what that was,
which is about everybody in the world, apart from Gary.
That's an interlude from the Enter the Game of Death?
I think it might be Enter the Game of Death.
I think, or something like that. Some rubbish,
These
badly
things that stick in our head.
I know, martial arts movie. We'll maybe find a clip or something of that.
Hopefully.
I'll find it somewhere.
Today, I've asked you all here to discuss some very important business. Mr. Keegan, what's this about? Please don't get angry. But according to information that we've received, a highly confidential security document belonging to the Chinese has been stolen. Do you have any views on this, Mr. Wang?
I have no idea who has the document at the moment, but I'm convinced the document is vitally important and in the wrong hands most dangerous.
I also like the cutout explosion in the back as well. Those clouds are... On one side, they're really, really smudged and smooth, but on the other side, under the chevrons, they're just cut out.
So much sparkly effect on there as well.
Yeah.
The twinkle effect's gone mad on those. And then, have you noticed, by the way, that
he didn't look like a killer. He looks quite friendly.
Well, he looks like Barry Scott from the
Silly Bang advert.
Silly Bang advert.
Bang.
GI's hero. Bang.
Bang. And the enemy is gone.
No, that's what he is. It's the Silly Bang of Rambo. Silly Rambo. I'm Barry Scott. If you're confronted with an unstoppable enemy force, you need Silly Bang.
Bang. And the enemy's gone. Oh, dear.
Yeah, it ain't good, that. It's a classic crap fair. And of course, the main logo is a mishmash of emboldened blocks. There's writing on top of things that shouldn't be. It's all kinds of wrong. And they've tried to go for that, tried to make it like a marble slab effect, and that hasn't worked.
No, it hasn't.
No, it has not.
And what are the chevrons in the back?
Oh, I don't know why it's there. It's just, why are they even there? It's just, the best thing about that's the Firebird logo.
Yeah.
Because the Firebird logo is always kind of cool. Everything else, crappy.
Dog egg. Oh, you could have gone seen him at the stand. Look at the PC show, Earl's Court, on the 14th to 18th September.
Oh, God's sake.
There you go. That's GI Hero. We've got one more to look at. Now, I picked this one because there are ways to advertise, our national treasures, and then there are ways not to advertise them. So this is Daley Thompson's Olympic Challenge. So this, apart from the random font choice for Olympic Challenge, there's a picture of Daley in the middle, sort of on the starting blocks, and that's okay. But I picked it for the 4 images behind him, which seem to show him in various stages of distress as he falls over.
The many stages of Thompson.
It's like, so one he's sort of running in his tracksuits, then he's falling over, then he's properly falling over, and then he's fully on the starting blocks.
Yes, it looks like he tripped over something, doesn't it, there?
So I was like, why would you include them? You could take them out and just leave the picture of him, which would have been better. There's also loads of text.
Yes.
Which you can't read because it's green on green.
Yeah, never a good colour choice to put dark green over dark green.
And yeah, the Olympic challenge font and the Daily Thompsons, it's all wrong. It's all badly wrong.
Just why would you do Olympic? I know they're not allowed to use the word Olympics, and there's real weird controls about the word Olympics and the way they portray it. So they can't use the Olympic circles or anything like that. That's why you're not seeing any of them on there anywhere.
That's fair enough.
But just why those choices? Great big blocky, thick awfulness, just horrible. And then you've got the I don't know what is this like. You're looking at Daily Thompson in different sex positions. It's like it's the Thompson Kama Sutra.
Just those middle two. He's just collapsed. He's just
ooh, ah. He's doing a proper barbarian note. That's what he's doing right there. What he's doing, I mean, oh dear me. This is all, I mean, Daley Thompson, amazing guy. Isn't it funny when you look at, I mean, and this is no disrespect to Daley Thompson, amazing athlete, amazing achievements back then. But look at his physique compared to modern athletes.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Crazy the difference. I mean, he's got an airy chest. You're not allowed to have that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, considering
that would impede his running progress.
He was he's world record holder, decathlete.
Yeah,
so he's great.
decathlete,
And his
amazing.
main strength was his sprinting. So he was like a 10, just under 11 seconds, 100-meter runner.
Incredible.
Yeah, I just thought there's better ways to advertise this, and just having pictures of Daley Thompson falling over.
Those first three are brilliant. So why wouldn't you have it? Why is this the wrong order as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
you don't. It should be going from. He should start in the starting blocks and then do that.
Why has he changed out of his tracksuit for the fourth one?
I don't know what it's all about. I'm guessing that was a different photo shoot on a different day.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's just obviously that one's set before the main one, which they've cut him out of, where he's waiting at the starting blocks.
Well, they've decontextualized him out of the because he's clearly on starting blocks and clearly on some kind of track. It would make more sense for him to be on a track as opposed to floating over a green landscape with a logo under his knee.
They could have just had that with a black background. And him, that picture in the right one, but in the pose that he's in the main image, just had that.
Yes,
it would have been fine.
It's sort of because this stage with these sort of sports games, they have to almost depict the sport, don't they? It's like we've got to depict the sport. We've got a sportsman, so you've got to be seen in him doing things in sport, as opposed to it just being like a close-up of Daley Thompson's face at the side. Or there's a million ways you could do that. In a modern way, it wouldn't be done anything like that.
No.
And is that screen grab on there? There's no way that's the C64, is it?
I think it is. Tell. Yeah, I think it is actually quite a good. This is actually quite a good-looking game for the C64. I remember.
I do remember there being a good-looking Daley Thompson game. We said it way back when we played Daley Thompsons, didn't we? We knew there was one, but
took a while to come out. But
but that cover's not doing any favors at all, is it?
It's really not. No. Yeah, there you go. There's Daley Thompson's Olympic challenge. Daley Thompson's falling over challenge. Collapsing challenge and GI Hero. A couple of classic crap bursts just to cheer us up after a lot of rubbish games, but some good games too. So what have we looked at this week? Well, we have looked at, before we get to next week, we looked at Slimey's Mine, which we were really impressed with and really enjoyed. Thought that was good. European Five-A-Side, which was bad. So bad. Mickey Mouse, which was a bit boring, just a bit bland. Fernandez Must Die, which was really good. Really impressive.
Go play it.
And go play that one. Battleships, again. Really good. Yeah, another good one. Kane II, pointless.
Not good.
Pointless. Why? Sword Slayer, weird, fun, but worth a knockabout. I think worth a look at. It's not terrible. Professional Snooker Simulator, which is terrible, and finally 19 Part 1 Boot Camp, which was we didn't like for various reasons. There we go. The charts. What have we got in the charts? This is according to Commodore User, going up from 10. A new entry. I hope. At number 10 is Samantha Fox Strip Poker.
Why has that come back?
Well, it's on the Reactor label, so it's obviously been re-released at a budget. Finally, down from number 1 to number 9 is Steve Davis's Snooker.
Finally, it's been toppled.
Finally, yeah. Down to number 8 from 7 is Bruce Lee. Up to number 7 from 15 is Rally Driver. Down to number 6 from 5, Frank Bruno's Boxing. Down to 5 from 3 is Yogi Bear. A new entry at number 4 is Airwolf on the Encore label, Elite budget label. Elite are starting to release their titles on budget here. Down to number 3 from 2 is Ace. Up to number 2 from number 9. European five-a-side.
Oh, my Lord. What?
And a new entry at
poor
number 1
people.
is Football Manager 2. There's a lot of love for Football Manager, I seem to remember, so I can see why that would go
Yeah.
straight in. Other notable things at number 11, Beach Buggy Simulator, Bionic Commando at 12, Ghostbusters at number 13, Stunt Bike Simulator, new entry at 14.
Not
Haven't
another
had
one.
that one yet. Target Renegade at 15, Rocky Horror Show, new entry at 16, Aliens, new entry at 17, Fruit Machine Simulator at 18, Battleships, a new entry at 19, and finally at number 20, Way of the Exploding Fist.
Wow.
Oh, indeed. So at this point, Zap from next month on, they really start to include a lot of Amiga stuff. So I think there's only about 16 Commodore 64 games, but we'll be covering them. So games we will be covering, because we've also got a lot of budget re-releases. So this is a bit of a nightmare to read through. So what's our first one? Daley Thompson's Olympic Challenge.
Okay.
We're looking at that.
Good.
Diamond, whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
The Fury, whatever that is. Hot Shot.
Okay.
Catechis.
Excellent.
LA Crackdown.
Have you played that before?
Have we? Is that the...
That's the budget one, isn't it? That's the budget commando
Well, this is
variant.
I think this isn't in the budget area. I thought that was LA SWAT.
Oh, it was LA SWAT. Yeah, so it must be.
Yeah, LA Crackdown. And this. Then we've got Mr. Wino. That doesn't
that
sound
is.
good. That doesn't sound good at all. Psycho Pigs UXB.
Yep.
Quest for the Golden Egg Cup. No, that's an adventure game. I wish it wasn't. But Ricochet.
Yeah, Ricochet's one. Yeah.
We've looked at Saboteur. We've looked at Sanction. Scorpius.
Okay.
The new one. Scuba Kids.
We've not looked at that, have we?
No. Stunt Bike Simulator.
Okay.
Summer Olympiad. Tracksuit Manager.
Like Winter Olympiad.
I think it's actually it gets a really good review, I think.
Okay.
Tracksuit Manager, which I seem to remember being held up as probably the best of the Football Manager games on the C64, so we'll have a look at that. Traz is a re-release. Trojan Warrior, which I think is makes me think of condoms.
Does.
Iridium is in there. Vindicator. That's another
that's a
big
new
one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's it. That's our games. Not many.
Right. Not many, but what's there? See what they're like.
Yeah, I think the next one's it's a 2-week monther, October.
It will be, yeah.
There you go. That's September done. So we move into the 100 episodes. That's it. We've got not much more. There's only 8 episodes left before we're done with 1988.
God, that's crazy.
And then obviously we'll need to be starting to think about the Golden Bread Bin Awards for 1988. So only got 8 weeks left before we're done. December's quite big. There's like 4 episodes up, but the next 2 months are 2 weekers. There's not much getting released. So, and then I know having a quick look at 1989 that the number of C64 games the new C64 games starts to drop quite a bit. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But anyway, as we still have 8 episodes yet to get through 1988 and the Bread Bin Awards and all the stuff. So there you go. Oh man, I think the summer. Well, I think that was quite a good episode. I think that was some quite good games there.
Yeah, there's some interesting little games in amongst that lot.
Yeah, there was more than we normally get. I feel that we've had some more positive stuff than what we've had recently. Even though it's only 3 games, 3 out of 9. They were good, but they were very good though. I did like them. Oh, there we go. That's it. That's September done. We'll be back next week, I guess. You got anything more you want to add?
No. I think I'm going to go off and maybe have another tackle at a couple of the games from this episode. There's been some good ones in there. Quite like enjoying playing some of those. So I might have another game, Battleships. Maybe this is good fun.
Cozy game of Battleships. You do that. I'm going to go off and I don't know. Probably go to bed. It's quite late. Anyway, just looking at that picture of Amazon women on the moon, it always makes me laugh. There we go. Yeah, so that's it. So we'll be back next week. We'll be starting October. So obviously, come join us then. And as ever, I have been Adrian Mills.
And I have been Graham Raddings.
And you have been listening to Zapped to the Past, where we have been getting annoyed with crappy snooker simulators. Pundit snooker should have been something that happened.
Yeah. Puka
really was pretty puka. And on that note, we will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zap to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.